Hola, señoros y señores y señoras. Y todos también y señoritas y señorosos. Hola to you, hola, hola, a million times hola. May I say welcome, bienvenidos. How you doing? Is that your mom's face I see? And if so, welcome to her as well and her face. Hopefully it's still attached to her body. So, here I was, naturally, going about my business in the world. I said, I'm going to do something so nice. I'm going to go over to CJ's stream. And I'm going to say, like, amazing, funny things in the chat. Just pow, pow, pow. I'm going to be chatting here. I'm going to be chatting there. Well, guess what CJ was doing? Not reading my chats out loud. Not going, oh my God, Eric, that's so brilliant what you just said. He was talking to Jonathan Basanti about something else entirely. I was like, whoa here, buddy. What the hell is going on? Ignoring my chats? I don't think so. Not in this lifetime, mister. Not on my watch. You know what I'm going to do? Fine, you're going to ignore my chat? I'm going to live stream. I'm going to say the words with my mouth instead. See what you think then. Oh, sure, they aren't as good. They aren't as crafted. They aren't as clever. They aren't as deserving of being read out loud as the words I put over there. But nevertheless, at least they get said out loud. LOL, says Winston's mom, and hello again. Boba Fett responds with a hearty ha. And then he accuses me by saying, you poacher of views, you rascal pico. He did that voice this time. And then Lady Lou shows up and she says, hi. This is called reading people's chats out loud, CJ. Reading them out loud. Because I thought funny doesn't mean that I won't read the chat out loud. I've been hilarious stream title, notes Lady Lou. Thanks. I'm known for my hilarity. Down at the hilarity archive and accounting offices. Well, look at the hilarity scores on this one. They're well into the 60th percentile. That's better than average. I do need to change my shirt. I need to remember to do that. Of course, I think it'd probably be fine to just change my shirt on screen. I never dreamed that anybody would ever be in a world where they cared if a dude had his shirt off or whatever. But I have to admit it. I have to admit it, like, okay, it is true that I do get objectified a little bit. It doesn't bother me at all. But I guess that means I shouldn't, like, just take my shirt off in front of anybody because I'm in a relationship or something? I don't know. But like when YouTube got me in trouble that one time, it didn't get me in trouble, but they just like they threw monkey wrenches at everything. When I tried to put a stream called like Eric streams with his naked man breasts or something. that didn't go. That didn't fly with YouTube at all, let me tell you. They said, oh, no, you don't, mister. You put those sexy, alluring, man flesh things away before we all of our eyes melt with sexiness. You know what, YouTube? You know what I would say to that? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not quite put my shirt down before I sat down? Oh, I'm sorry. That was my bad. That was an accident. When did men's nipples become like scary to anybody. Never. Yeah, wow. This is Rachel's belt, actually. It's not my belt, but I'm purposing it as my belt. It's a little not a good belt, but it's better than no belt. And it's better than looking for one of my other belts, or even going to where I know it is. Like, I know it's right next to the bed, my other belt, but... Well, when I needed to put on a belt, this one was closest to me, I guess. I'm not sure. This is just a thing that I grabbed. I don't know that I didn't even grab a belt. I just grabbed some like string or something and tie my pants tighter. It is a great title, and I'm curious to see if new people arrive who want to engage. Well, that's an excellent comment there, Winston's mom. I want to really thank you and tell you that I appreciate your insightful contributions to this conversation. Let's see what else we got going on here. Winston's mom again shares, do you need a belt? I know there is usually one hanging on the wall, usually a very long belt that hangs on a nail, which appears sometimes when you see more room. Well, I'll tell you what I need, Winston's mom. I need a belt that no matter where I take it off, it always goes to where I'm next going to want to put it on. By itself, before I get there. The problem with belts is they tend to gather where you don't need them. Which is where you take clothes off, not where you put them on. I take clothes off and put them on in different spots. Clothes go off in there. They go on in here. If they go off in here, then they're dirty clothes. But lots of clothes take a while to get dirty. I've got very dirt-resistant clothes. So what that means is sometimes I will discover that I've successfully worn the same shirt for days and days and days. And it hasn't gotten dirty yet, you know. On the other hand, sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, I smell like yesterday's trash can. Talk about recess. I've heard of recess, but this is ridiculous. Hi, Rachel, darling. Rachel says, yay. Men Like God says, hello, famous fellow people. While Self-Help Lounge notes, you could put it on a conveyor belt that brings it to the put-on clothes area. I could. Of course, in order to do that, I'd first have to have said conveyor belt, or assemble said conveyor belt, or I guess if I worked for Disney, I have to Imagineer it. Winston's mom says hi at Self-Help Lounge and at Men Like Gods, while Lady Lou counters hey at Men Like Gods and hiya at Rachel Apollosa. Not wanting to let anybody feel left out, she then adds on howdy at Self-Help Lounge. Sorry to have made you a second-class citizen, just an afterthought, rather than incorporating you in my initial burst of greetings, like I should have. I made you all the rest on Gilligan's Island. But then I came back the next season and I fixed it, because I'm an INFJ. Nobody wants to be all the rest, Lady Lou. You did such a great job the other night on the spaceship. Boy, you must be having an off day. You're already off to a rough start, lady. This man needs to narrate some drama. I would love to narrate some drama. Host Eric reads the chat like the boss he is, and meanwhile, please hit the like button if you haven't yet, and ask Host Eric about his weekend typing schedule. No, don't ask me about those. What? Hey, wait a second! You Roscoe Pico, you got me, you scoundrel! Rachel says, it's nice to use these streams as meditations. If you find me useful as a meditation, you must be my soulmate or something. I may be useful as like entertainment, but only an INFJ would think of it as a meditation. You know? It's like, she doesn't find me like, okay, shut up already. She needs her time, you know. She needs to go inside and have her alone time where she's not doing whatever it is I'm doing. But the funny thing is, what is she doing there? She's listening to me live stream. I mean, she could be doing anything she wants, right? There's nothing, and she has more. She has to endure more Eric than anybody, right? And yet here she is, choosing to listen to this live stream. How crazy is that? Host Eric narrates his life, which is one big drama comedy already. 4 stars, says Men Like Gods. With inflation, you might want $1 your shirt. I might want $1. I might want $1 your shirt. I might want $1 your shirt. I don't know what that means. But that sometimes happens. It's amazing. I figured out lack of communication, people actually desire, and then blame a person communicating for not communicating. I don't know what's happening in the universe. Nice belt, Rachel. Figured out the lack of communication. People actually desire, and then blame a person communicating for not communicating. Who is this about? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Chris Tyne says, hey there. And in reply, the host, Eric, says, hey there, Chris Tyne. How are you this evening? With a very FE forward greeting to make Chris Tyne feel welcome. After all, Chris Tyne did a pretty good job on the spaceship with the handling munitions. So unfortunately we had to lose drag, but shit happens. Let's see. Boba Fett wants to know, anyone been to a Vipassana? Is it a sauna for vipers? Is it a VIP ass sauna? Where you just put your ass in the room with the hot rocks and the steam? That was a blast night playing Space Host Eric Explorer. Did you know that objectification and jealousy is a necessary component in the state of being in love or having a true love interest, at least to a certain and healthy degree? Well, definitely I know about the objectification part. I don't think that you need to be jealous if the two parties are, there's zero reason to doubt each other's commitment, then you actually don't really need to ever feel any jealousy. I mean, granted, I would feel jealousy if it is the case that to truly love somebody is to be susceptible to jealousy, but to be a truly good partner is to make sure your partner never has to feel it, basically. But objectification is definitely a necessary component of being in love and true love. I find that out every time I have sex with Rachel. That once again, I seem to be not exactly treating her as an equal. And I'm like, hey, Eric, you're a little bit more enlightened than this. You know? You're talking to her in a condescending tone. You're telling her what to do. It's like, where did this come from all of a sudden? You're not like this. And then I remember, oh, right. That's my penis thinking. I'm just thinking with my dick. That shit is dumb. Are you trying to win the Nobel Prize? No, of course not. You have it on. Is this the Nobel Prize? The shirt? Rebate Dad? I was also a teacher at this school. I wasn't just a parent of a child who attended this school. Although I was both. But, yeah, I was the debate coach here. For 1 year with the high school team. I know plenty of people who've been on ones varying in lengths. It sounds intense and often uncomfortable. Been on what? Chris Tyne, this is the lovely Lady Lou's channel, an IFJ who reads auras and didn't go to karaoke tonight, but may be dancing tomorrow night. Allow me to introduce you. You should be careful though, Chris Tyne, because Lady Lou's dancing, you gotta be in some serious hardcore moshing. Like, it's rare people don't get injured anytime Lady Lou's dancing. She's there for the most hardcore thrash punk mosh pits. So it's not dancing like you maybe think. Like let's go dancing and meet some boys. And, not like that kind of dancing. You're gonna be at least bruised, maybe have some broken bones afterwards. So, yeah. Her dream, Lady Lou's dream, is to crowd surf across an incredibly turbulent mosh pit while the Misfits are playing I've Got Something to Say, and make it all the way to the end of the Pantages Theater, the back end of it, and back to the stage, to be tossed on stage, only to have the lead singer of the Misfits, whose name I don't recall at the moment, plant a big kiss right on the lips. What is his name? There's a meme of him like buying cat food. It's pretty funny. I've got something to say. I killed your baby today. It doesn't matter much to me as long as it is dead. You know, that guy. There's a big funny meme showing him coming out of the supermarket, like looking at these two different kinds of cat food that he's gotten. That's the problem with being a punk rocker, you know? It doesn't look good at 40, really. It doesn't really look good at 50. Those cool, like, things you can put in your ears, they're gonna look really dumb in, like, a year at most. Even you're gonna think, should I have done that? Don't worry, I dance like a monkey on coke. I have lost so much coke that way. It's like, why is it that every time I lay out rails, it seems like a dancing monkey comes out of nowhere, stomping all over it, spreading it all over tarnation. Anyway, haven't been able to muster the courage to go one again. To go to one again. You sort of put yourself through the ringer, it's nice. Are you talking about a Chinese massage? a Shanghai special? I had one of those in Shanghai. There's nothing sexual about it, let me tell you. If you're thinking something sexual, no. There's nothing relaxing about a Shanghai massage, if you're thinking that either. No. There's learning that your chin can touch parts of your body you never imagined possible. There's being told to relax by the man who's forcing your body to fold in half. I don't even think relax is a word, I said to him. When you're done, they offer you beer. No, it's a It's an actual. I mean, in Shanghai, massage places are all over the place, and they're actually massage places. Chinese massage people go through. It's like you can order your level of masseuse. Like this person's got 8 years of advanced massage training plus or whatever, and you can get like the most expensive one or lesser expensive one. It's not sexual at all. It's like going to the chiropractor or something. It's afterwards you feel like, oh my god, what did they just do to me? But you know what? Hey. Of course, I was already sober when I was in Shanghai, so I had to say no to the beer. I accepted a bottle of water instead. But and then I went and got cake. Because I ate so much cake in Shanghai. There's a cake store right next to that massage place too. There's a lot of cake stores in Shanghai. You want to try some? You want to go someplace and have plenty of opportunities to eat cake? Try Shanghai. Yeah, especially like the main kind of internationally parts of it. Well, Siegfried, understandably, as a chatter, he notes to me that he demands my attention right now, and I am here to provide it. Unfortunately, there was a short delay, as I insisted foolhardily in completing my thought before addressing Siegfried's demand, which should have been given precedent, obviously. Cake, indeed. But one thing people know how to do well in Shanghai for sure. The massaging, you're not sure about if they know how to do it well or they're just like beating you up. It's not exactly clear. But regardless, one thing they definitely know how to do in Shanghai is bake cakes. All kinds of crazy cakes. But not gross like bean cakes like you think of when you think of Chinese cakes, but like European style delicious cakes. Okay. Now, super nice, says Boba Fett. The proper ones. One may also choose to go the happy way anyway, but those girls aren't good with a real massage, though. Yeah, well, there may have been such places, but I wasn't. I was nowhere near any shadiness when I was in Shanghai. Like, where I was in the city, I wasn't. Where I was in my life, I wasn't looking for anything shady. I was just spending most of my time going to AA meetings. And I've never been, when I do look for shady shit, it's never in the form of sex. It's always in the form of drugs. Maybe gambling, one of the two. You gotta compartmentalize your vices. So, okay, part of the reason why I've always had this long-term relationship thing is I can't do vice well in that area. I'm a complete fucking mess. So, let's try to resolve all matters related to sex by being in a long-term relationship. Now, this is a very FI-polar approach. Nevertheless, kind of works, except, of course, you end up with women you don't like very much, and that they don't like you at all, of course. They really don't like you. You're fine with them, mostly, but they don't like you. And they make it abundantly clear over time that they really don't like you, and that there's something terribly, terribly wrong with you. If you're Eric, and you've existed, this is what you've experienced before Rachel, anyway. They were all fine girls, they were fine enough, before. The biggest problem was none of them liked me. That's how I experienced it. Of course, it also turned out to be a problem as I thought about it more. But it's kind of a problem too that I don't like them. But my answer to that was, well, no, because you always just do your own thing. You don't need to hang out with them. I mean, isn't that funny to think like that? It's so FI-polar. Carla, let me make special note of the occasion in which you made an economics pun, saying that the inflation reference was you needed to change your shirt. It's still terrible. So terrible that it still doesn't make any sense at all. And you know what, Carla? That's okay. Because even though you are incensed, you are loved. And I'm going to take out this uncomfortable red belt. Because it's too thin. It squeezes me and it needs to fatten out the surface area. It makes me feel like I got a too tight a rubber band around my waist. If I go for a massage, I want some 200-pound corn-fed housefrau named Olga. Yeah, well, I mean, like, I got a few massages when I was in Shanghai. I think I had a chick one time, like a lady one time, but the other couple times were dudes. I actually kind of prefer to get a dude to do it because if you think you're going to get my loaf and you're a girl, you better be fucking 200-pound corn-fed housefrau named Olga. You better be, because regular girls cannot massage my shoulders hard enough to get my loaf. I use a hammer on it, myself. I can't even get it hard enough myself. They could get it in China. They got the fuck out of it. That guy he's like, oh, God. And he's like, has his elbow sharpened to this exact point where if it were any sharper, it would pierce your skin. But it's been precision ground down to exact massage elbow point by his years of massage training in China massage schools. Or something. That's one thing I would say about China massages. They got my loaf, and nobody can ever get my loaf. I never even bothered even asking Rachel to try and she'll diligently try and just like, oh, come on. Because the thing is, what she doesn't realize is when she's pushing her hardest and trying really hard to be like a good girlfriend and like make me tend to my SI a little bit. She's pushing her hardest, and she is like this far, and she needs like this much more. And I just don't even have the heart to tell her, like, I can't even feel that. Whatever it is you're doing, I don't even feel that. So just don't even bother. I need a fucking hammer for my loaf. Well, I don't want to go to Thailand, no. Apparently, in Thailand, they have a lot of sexual intercourse with each other, supposedly. Using genitals, breasts, other bodily fluid things. It's in that. I've got all of that whole area thing right over there. Just, I don't know, I would prefer not ever get too far away from me. I need the people's elbow, right. You see, this is the thing. When that famous guy one time famously said, when evaluating a Chinese work project, and he asked them, he said, why are you having all these guys use shovels? Why don't you get a backhoe? And the Chinese official said, well, because all these people need jobs. And the guy said, well, why don't you just give them spoons then? And the point is, the Chinese officials thought about it, and they're like, yeah, let's do that. And it's that years of digging holes with spoons that made that masseuse's elbow so communistically perfect for jabbing my loaf. So, Eric, have you ever had a supernatural experience? Or do you just keep denying them? Have you had the Tibetan bowls? I do have a Tibetan bowl that makes a meow. I'm not denying them. I wish it's like, it's not like there's a supernatural thing and I'm like, no, it must have been a trick of the light. That had to have been a trick of the light. I'm not having those moments at all, right? So something's got to at least sort of look like a ghost for you to accuse me of denying it being a ghost. It's not a refusal to accept. There's a scene in A Man with Two Brains, which is a Steve Martin movie, where his wife's dead, and this very predatory woman is trying to marry him. She's like a brain surgeon. And he goes to this shrine to his dead wife, and he says, if there's any reason why I shouldn't be with this new woman, just give me a sign. And like disembodied voices start wailing, and all this the painting starts spinning around and shit, and he goes, any sign will do. Any sign at all. Just anything. Nothing? Okay, cool. It's not like that, okay? It is not that at all for me. I am actively seeking and looking for paranormal shit, but I just don't see it. I've seen so many identified flying objects. I can't even tell you how many. I've lost count. Yeah, I bet Macho Man Randy Savage could get my loaf. Boba Fett makes a good point here. Macho Man Randy Savage's elbow was the only real elbow. Rock's finisher sucked. The Rock tried to give me a massage one time. He's got little girl hands. And it's just like, okay, don't even bother trying. All those muscles obviously are not good for anything because you can't even get my loaf. Then, like God says, I had to go for massage therapy once. Mostly men therapists, but the most effective one was this petite, 115 pounds, 20-something, with the strongest fingers on earth. Problem is, you would pop boners. TFW. Eric only has instrumental attentional value to the YouTube chat. What does TFW mean? It sounds like an internet word. Like an internet acronym that I don't know yet. TFW. That feel win. That feeling win. I only attribute instrumental value in attending the chat. Oh no. It's not just instrumental, Waldner. I can tell you right now, the authenticity of the sheer joy, pleasure, longing, lust, loving that I'm feeling right now after reading your comment is as authentic a resonance with another human being as anyone can ever have. But you had a prophetic experience recently, and your dreams are a very quirky, silly one. Did you think it was just serendipitous? I don't think that was the word was coincidental. I mean, I'll tell you this much. I see Rachel's NI as scarily prophetic sometimes. It's like I'm learning to kind of keep an eye out for it and trust it more. She knows things that there's no reason for her to know. Like how she knew, and I can tell what the other thing is. She knows things that she doesn't want to know a lot of times. So she knew that I wanted Stanford to beat UConn yesterday, and my dad wanted Stanford to beat UConn. We were rooting for Stanford. And she knew before the game. And you can see because she got this serious look, kind of like, that Stanford was going to lose. Today, before the Duke game started, I was talking about how, I like Duke this year for once. I'm rooting for him for once because, it's like Coach K deserves this kind of send-off thing, and he can be that coach who does. He can count for him and for Joe Paterno. Both Rachel and I thought of Joe Paterno immediately. But anyway, Rachel knew North Carolina was going to win. North Carolina's the 8 seed. Duke's the 2 seed. And what I mean by she knew, I can read her, right? Like, she is like, she didn't want to know this. She wanted to know something that was happy. But she somehow knew North Carolina. She called it this morning. And I said, no. Hey, get that NI out of my face for a second. I'm telling a story here. I thought so too at first, Rachel. I thought Duke was going to lose early in the tournament. Of course, Rachel never thought that. Rachel never said anything about Duke until she knew suddenly that they were going to lose North Carolina for some reason. So what's up with that? I mean, she's been watching the games. It's just NI, I guess. She's seen something that she couldn't exactly probably articulate. And that's the thing is, the reason I trust her NI is because it's not like she's constantly making predictions about things or saying things or knowing things. She doesn't do it very often. So when it does happen, it's like, bam, you know? Oh no, stupid Eric. The coffee's not done. You forgot to finish making it. What a dum-dum you are. Boy, oh boy. I filled it up with water and I put in the paper towels that I use instead of coffee filters because ridiculously, paper towels work better to make coffee than coffee filters do. But I can't come up with all the examples. I need to all make a point of trying to keep track of these kind of examples. But, you know, it's like I immediately reject the NI with my story. I said, no. Look, the Slavs are out looking out for him. They want him to at least get to the national championship game. I think he's gonna lose. I think they're gonna lose to Kansas, but it's their special time. Of course, my NE story of the Slavs already did that. They got his ass to the Final Four somehow, even though that Duke team wasn't very good. Rachel could see all that stuff, but I'm busy telling my stories. And my stories tend to go along with sports anyway, with what I want to happen. I don't bet on sports. Like, I don't do sports book betting because I lack that thing that Rachel has. And the thing is, you can see it in, like when we're gambling at like a casino or something too. She seems to know whether or not, ahead of time, whether or not there's any point in like winning almost, like sitting down, like we have any chance of winning. But she's also very hesitant to. She knows how I am about being told what to do. Basically, I'm very difficult to control. Rachel's got more control over me than anybody ever has by never trying to control me. And so as a consequence, she has me. Basically, whenever Rachel says like, I want meow, or we're doing meow, or anything like that, I always like jump to make that happen because she doesn't do it very often, right? I mean, she's no Zen master. She's no Zen master. Trust me. Don't let INFJs fool you. It's like, I was explaining to her when I got back in the car earlier. We went to the Whippet store, and I was explaining to her something about how I had. Oh, I didn't get what you're doing. I thought you were. She was looking at her ring, in like the street light or something as we were driving, and I thought she was looking at her fingers about neuropathy thing. So I asked her, "Is your neuropathy acting up?" And she's like, "Actually, it feels better, but I was really just looking at that ring." I said, "Oh, okay, I misinterpreted what was going on there. I thought because I haven't seen it used to be worse. She would look at her fingers more and do this kind of stuff, and I'd notice it, And so I was wondering if it was coming back. And then, of course, what does she do? She says, "My bad. I'm sorry. For what? For me not interpreting something correctly? Why would that be your bad? How could that possibly be your bad? So, you know, there's to be that perfect socially does not mean you're a Zen master. It just means you look like one to other people. In reality, you struggle like anybody else with self-doubt and a lack of understanding of the self sometimes. And, like Rachel had a piece of food stuck between her teeth today. And I knew it was a serious problem because she was picking at her teeth for a second in the car. She just never does that kind of shit, right? She doesn't, like, pick at herself absently or whatever. So if she's picking at something, it must be bothering her. Like, is it bothering you a lot? Or, like, so that's how it went. So is there a piece of food, like, still stuck between your teeth? Or is it hurt there from when you got it out, or what? And she's like, well, I think it's bothering me. So I think there's food there. Or I think there's something stuck there. This is so backwards. You're supposed to be able to tell whether there's something stuck there. Like, I can tell there's something stuck there and it's bothering me. Not because something's bothering me, there's probably something stuck there. That's so unconscious, SI. Hi, Octavia Silva. Anyway, we went and got dental picks from the Harbor Freight. I don't know if she got it out or not. She went to bed a little on the earlier side. Seemed like she was not feeling super well, but I think that's probably links to having taken an Adderall earlier. People who aren't FI polar, it can affect your moods a little bit. I mean, it can affect mine too. I'm just saying. Like, I always know what it is, whereas she never puts two and two together. That's SI8's plot. She never puts two and two together. Oh yeah, that's right. Like, here's an INFJ. God, I cannot figure out. There's something bothering me here, this area. Oh, remember earlier when you drank that bottle of poison? Oh, right, that bottle of poison. Yeah, I wonder if that has anything to do with it. I'm making fun of INFJs. Sorry, you guys. Hi, Octavio Silva. Apart from Brett, I always liked the bad guys the most. You don't like the Tar Heels? I won football pool twice and have only played twice. I paid the bar tab though twice. That's pretty good. Pretty good. There, lady. Maybe you should become a professional gambler. A couple of early instances of success guarantee a long and prosperous career as a gambler. Is when someone plays the bad guy persona for the crowd. Some wrestlers are heels. Oh, I know that term now. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Well, others have heel turn story arcs where they turn into a bad guy like Hulk Hogan. But I couldn't take it anymore. I've had it with my former teammates. They say they had my back. But when I was having my head stomped on in WrestleMania 14, where were they? Nowhere. Give me the mic. That's like wrestling talk, They're probably the bots. Okay, so they're probably the bots because they don't always remember to click like. Eat your vitamins, say your prayers, and you should be fine. Hope they're cutting a promo. Yeah, right. if those guys over there on that team think they're going to get away with this. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the only time I really watched any wrestling is, like, the 80s wrestling when I was a kid, I watched that some. The one with, like, Iron Sheik, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage, who else was there? I don't remember exactly, but well, there was Hulk Hogan's wife was there too. I seem to remember her getting involved a lot, like this big-titted blonde lady hitting people with chairs. And then there was those announcers who were always having the mics taken away from them by the wrestlers. And I think even at the time I thought, hey, why Legion of Doom sounds familiar? Why don't these wrestlers respect the appropriate jurisdiction of the broadcasters? They're wrestlers, not broadcasters. Why do they keep taking the microphone away from the broadcasters? And why do the broadcasters enable this ridiculous, discursive farce? Frankly, I don't know what else to call it, but a discursive farce. I recognize that you're angry, sir, but what is your point here? What is your point? I'm probably a little older than you in like gods. But I do remember, at least on a couple of WrestleManias, that I was in the storylines coming into the thing. Like, oh my God, that Iron Sheik, he hates America. I hope Hulk Hogan really gets him one good. Damn Iranians. I don't know what year the Iron Sheik was around. Probably early 80s. I was probably like 10 years old or something. But my favorite one was Roddy Piper. I always liked him and his shtick better than the other guys' shticks. I thought I guess I never quite understood whether he was a heel or a good guy. Now you guys brought that term back for me, heel, that I recalled it. But yeah, I always liked Roddy Piper and would root for him. But I think he was supposed to be a bad guy. But I don't know, for some reason I liked him. I thought, now this Roddy Piper guy, he's interesting. He's from a foreign country, but it's a good foreign country, not like that darn Iron Sheik. I never had any other period of time when I was quote unquote into wrestling at all. But I do remember being very interested in watching this one documentary on a more modern wrestler who didn't really dress up in any kind of a costume or anything, but I forget what his name was, but he was notoriously like crazy about just throwing his body around and just. So there's his most famous thing that happened was there was this thing where they had a cage and he was on top of the cage and unscripted, not supposed to happen, the top of the cage broke and he fell like 25 feet to the mat. And the doctor rushes in like, oh fuck, this is real. Shit just got real, right? And this crazy fucker like waves him off. He's still in full acting mode. Turns out he like ruptured his spleen and fucked himself up badly. And he continued to wrestle for like another 30 minutes, throwing each other all over the fucking place. I forget what the guy's name was, but that storyline intrigued me. Like, ay, why are you not caring about your body more? Mick Foley. That sounds like the name. I think that's the right. I think that is the guy. I think Boba Fett named it right there. I think it's Mick Foley. He had a regular name. He didn't have a. I know that he didn't have like a Iron Sheik or whatever. He had a regular name. Sexy syntax contains cunning stunts that stun with counts of kinetic scansion, discounting intuition, and intense scanning of stunts and cunning. NETB wrote that, or possibly an INTB, would probably need to be. Who wrote that sentence? Did you write that? You did not write that sentence, Winston's mom. Did you? Did you write that sentence? That feels like an NTP wrote that sentence. An NTP wrote that sentence. It reminds me of a sentence of my own that I looked at earlier today, which was, even Kant can't contract cannot without an apostrophe. But yeah, I can guarantee, like, ENTP or INTP, but 85% ENTP wrote that sentence that I read from Winston's mom. Octavia Silva, host Eric said, don't worry, chatters, I'll pay attention to you, so I'm waiting for him to read my 60 adult tongue twister I found on a slate. I'm having a crisis after thinking I'm INFP for 2 years. New thing says INTP, not good, at, what does that say? Yedel? And yet I love math because it only has one answer. Distracted in high school, passed with a C. T screwed my boyfriend. That last little bit seems to deserve its own paragraph. You shouldn't attach it as a writer to this bill, probably. James Harback, I got some bad news for you. You can't teach other people how to write dirty tongue twisters. If twisting your tongue in dirty ways makes you feel kind of gay and causes you to think of lays, then maybe just oh may, you might perhaps be ENTP and want to talk of poop and pee and other body silly things. And that's how you make lim ring rings. You can't teach people how to do that shit. It just has to happen. How silly. Teaching people how to make up shit. You can't teach people how to make up shit. It's completely like oxymoronic, right? You can't teach people how to make shit up. You can teach people how not to make shit up. You can do that. We are having some cheese here at the beach, but the sand keeps on getting on my cheese. Eric Litch wants to know your opinion on Prion disease. I have no idea what that is. Is it the thing that causes people to buy a Prius? I mean, I think it's horrible. I think it's a horrible disease. You know, it's like, I get why people might want a Prius, but surely you could find something else. Is there a cure? Yeah. Hummers for everybody. There's a cure. Good old American know-how. I want to get 6 miles to the gallon, but I want to get there in 5 seconds. That's fair. I don't know what prion disease is. It sounds like some made-up thing in a science fiction show. Prion disease. There's something wrong with your prions. They're decaying at an alarming rate. Yes, it sounds like made-up Star Trek talk. Prion diseases, also known as transmissible spongiform encephalitis, are a group of rare fatal brain diseases that affect animals and humans. Oh, prion diseases. Oh, my opinion is, I think they're great. I love them. More prion diseases. The problem is, not enough people have prion diseases, is my take on it. You know, it's like, mad cow disease is a prion disease? Okay, cool. Well, if you have a prion disease, please stay away from me. I don't feel like catching one, but good for you, because anything that's rare is special. So, since prion diseases are rare, that means you're a special snowflake who is about to die from a weird brain disease. But what matters is that you have mystical superpowers. And you're a sparkling unicorn. That's what's important. Kuru is mad cow in humans. Kuru, again, sounds like a made-up disease. It sounds like some Star Trek made-up language. The prion decay has caused him to collapse into a state of Kuru. What's Kuru? Oh, it's his planet's word for coma. What planet is this, anyway? Earth. Okay, now I'm confused. It's okay, you were confused to begin with. Nothing's changed. Okay, well, it's true that I'm still confused, but something has changed. I'm confused in a different way now. That doesn't count. It's real change. Why not? Because real change only comes along with an exactly proportional amount of hope. And you, Eric, are hopeless. Hopelessly devoted to poo. It's named after some cannibalistic tribe, Kuru. Oh, you mean cannibals caused prion diseases by eating brains of people in gross ways that caused some fucked up shit to happen, and then now we've got prion diseases? Figures. See, morality is biological. Okay? It's immoral to eat people's brains. That's why it gives you prion diseases. Just like it's immoral to play tennis. That's why it gives you a tennis elbow. Joy. I love you too, Eric, but no daddy shit. No WrestleMania, please. What did I do? It was a long time ago, and there were only like 4 channels. It's true. And you don't have to worry about me giving you more wrestle stuff, because I have exhausted the entire cupboard of wrestle information that I have. That's all of it. There's no iceberg beneath the tip. That's all there is to it. Yeah, there were only 4 channels, and one thing I noted that it's kind of a little bit of a generational thing. When I referenced Gilligan's Island the other day in a typing session, The person told me they'd never seen an episode of Gilligan's Island. I said, how could you ever stay home sick from school without watching Gilligan's Island? Because the only other things on are like the news on one channel and like the early starting soap opera on another channel, maybe. The Price is Right's already over. What else are you going to watch? Don't tell me you're listening to Bob Barker and spaying and neutering your pets again. You've already spayed and neutered them once. That's all you need to do it. You need to be watching Gilligan's Island at that point. Unless it's the year when they had Get Smart on that same time slot instead. In which case you need to be watching Get Smart, obviously. I just finished Merlin. Not gonna lie. Sad. Kind of sad. What's Merlin? You talking about King Arthur's magician? You just finished him? Like, you'd been blue balling him and you finally let him ejaculate? Or, what do you mean? You finished him like, you're finished! You'll never work in this town again. Like that? Octavia Silva wants a bedtime story about Prion diseases. Octavia Silva, I don't tell bedtime stories about Prion diseases, okay? But I might tell you a bedtime story about something else. You knew I was going to go there to show, well, you know, I had to learn at some point in my life, Eric, if you're always picking high-hanging fruit, then nobody really notices when you nail it. Go ahead, pick some low-hanging fruit. Some of the low-hanging fruits are the juiciest of the fruits. Rachel says to me that when my balls hang low, that they comprise the juiciest of the fruits. I trust her judgment. Merlin, well, if he hadn't been a magician, he would have had a real problem because, while Arthur was away, he was trying to hump Arthur's lady. Who's Arthur's lady again? What's her name? Candy or something? We'll call her Candy. Anyway, Arthur had put on a innocuous looking chastity belt on Candy. Well, her name was Guinevere, but she was known in local circles as Candy from her days as a stripper. Anyway, and in fact, it even had what appeared to be a pee hole that he could repurpose. Because he was a long gentleman, but rather thin in breadth, like a breadstick from Olive Garden, if you will. What he didn't know is that inside there were little barbed hooks to catch the perpetrator in the act. But fortunately, Merlin had, for some reason, learned and memorized back in school and had never forgotten this one weird spell that removes barbed hooks from your penis specifically. And that's all it does. He got lucky, is what happened, because it's almost the odds that he would have even ever learned that spell was so rare, so obscure, are astronomical. That he learned it and remembered it and was able to incant it at the right moment to save his penis from a life inside of Guinevere's chastity belt in not a very pleasurable way was probably his greatest feat as a magician. No. The one who rode around on the horse naked was Lady Godiva. And the reason she rode her horse naked is because that was her favorite way to masturbate. She enjoyed the clippity-clop sounds as her clitoris rubbed up against the saddle horn. Historians have painted a slightly different picture of the event, saying that it had something to do with her briefly switching identities with Tiffany, and that she simply had lost her clothing. But I doubt that to be the case. And as far as when the chocolates came into the mix, I'm not sure. You hate potty jokes and that horrible poem of shit. I'm not INTP, I'm a destitute INFP. If you hate potty jokes, well, I mean, everybody hates bad potty jokes. The important thing is, whatever kind of joke it is, nobody hates hilarious jokes, and everybody hates bad jokes. That's all there is to it. Well, Carla incensed, okay, look. I've got a short coming up that's going to be published, okay? And I want to play it for you. It's not even live yet, but you're going to get a preview of it. Oh, I can't, because I can't log in with that. Maybe I can do it on my phone if I'm still, I don't know. Anyway, this is what happens. So, in the short, Tiffany here, who's always, you can never find her clothes. She's lying down, and Perry here says, gosh, Tiffany, a lot of girls don't even give me a chance, and last night was really special, and I know we were drunk, but I think we really bonded together. And then she goes, oh my God, I'm so hungover. Ew, what are you? Please tell me I didn't go down on you. And he goes, oh. Now, that's F.I. Polar humor, right? If that incenses you and makes you feel sad for him, or makes you feel mad at me for making that joke, or makes you worry about Tiffany, then you're not T.I. Toole, okay? You're gonna find a man when you're tan? Look, Carla, I've got a simple diagnosis for you here. You're way too tan. You need to be more beige. Well, this is a common mistake these days a lot of women are making. They're beautiful, they're gorgeous, and then they let their beige slip into tan. Or even camel, or even cereal. Indian summer or something. Here's what I say. If gas is too expensive, let's put a little bit of good old American know-how towards the problem. First, let's find some living dinosaurs. Then, let's squeeze all the oil out of them, bypassing the whole millions of years process. Why not? What's most like a dinosaur? A Gila monster. Ergo, what's the solution to high gas prices? A massive program of juicing Gila monsters. Problem solved. Why society struggles with these things, I don't know, when the solution's right in front of us. We just need an industrial scale Gila monster juicer. And we just go right up to it and you squeeze it. And you go to the gas station in the future, you're going to put a quarter in, and then push a button, and this massive press will squash a living Gila monster until it becomes oil. Refine it right there on the spot, and then pump it directly into your car. That's the future. There's no lead in this petroleum either. Sure, there are a lot of other heavy metals and radioactive isotopes, but no lead. Alright, so Give me the sob story plus Prius. You made a car pun. Now, car puns are okay, acceptable, but really the only one car pun has been formally approved by the Pun Approval Committee, and that is the following. I am Audi like a Scandinavian car is acceptable when you are leaving someplace. Thorium reactors are a thing. Cannot melt down and don't produce radioactive water, but no, they can't use that instead of coal and natural gas. Thorium and thulium and thallium. Okay, so I guess what I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to play Work in Progress. I don't have Rachel's vocals in place yet. It's just me doing what Rachel's vocals will sound like when they're there, okay? Obviously, my imitation girl voice is not going to do justice to Rachel's actual voice. But I'm going to play this thing for you. Yeah, I'm going to play what we got so far. This thing's starting to come together, you know. In general, maybe it's not a good idea to play people works in progress. I know it's not. What are they going to say? Well, you should change this. I just do it anyway because, why? I'm Baby Pig Poop Face. I just can't help but be Baby Pig Poop Face. I'll probably always be Baby Pig Poop Face. And there's really nothing any of us can do about it. You know what I'm saying? And I think you do.
I buy a crap load of whippets and I hate whipped cream. Wonder what that could mean. Always sit down when whipping up dreams, or you'll fall to the ground and you'll make a scene. I'm Wendy Whippets, B-double-B's wife. It's a hell of a life, lots of no's, little strife. Wendy Whippets has arrived. B-double-B and Wendy Whippets invite you to sing along with our song.
Like me. Much more you see, like the B-double-P-F-A-C-E. I'm a baby pig and my face is poo. My name is Mr. Poop Face. Nice to meet you. What we need is a party in here. Dancing girls, music, drugs, beer. And baby pig poop face. And when the whip dancing girls.
W-E into that D-Y to the space. Whippets are what go in my face. Why wouldn't they? I'm not Cindy Slipperjay. No way, I'm Wendy Whippets today. Mrs. Big Poop Face is also okay.
This is Baby Pig Poop Face, I might say.
Together we're a couple that's super gay.
Just the B-double-P and Wendy Whippets invite you to sing along with our song. B-double-Poop Face and his wife.
Mrs. Baby Wendy Whippets, Big Poop Face for life. Have a nice night.
A little bit of an arrangement issue at the end. I'm still hammering out some kinks on the arrangement. But it's a husband and wife rap duo team. We're kind of like the Audio 2 of 2022. I'm MCI, people call me Milk. She's Gizmo. You know? She's Wendy Whippets. I'm Baby Pig Poop Face. We're a husband and wife rapping duo who keeps it real and from the streets. Our streets. The streets of Arcadia. Where we live. Oops, I did that thing that I get mad at CJ for doing. Should never have done that. That was terrible of me. I'm so sorry. Please, please, please forgive me, whatever you do. Men like gods, he's talking about unicorns having inverted. Let's just say my gynecologist said she'd read about it, but it goes the other way to get my man extra pleasure. No, I'm not soliciting. I have no idea what you're saying. Men like gods agrees with Eric and says, "You've got me more confused than Winston's mom." Well, that's an accomplishment because Winston's mom can be sometimes a little confusing when she's trying to avoid making me go meow 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 meow. And she gets a little, what are you trying to say? Hopelessly devoted to poo. Grease will never be the same. Is that song from Grease? It is from Grease, isn't it? Hopelessly devoted to poo. These lyrics remind me of a German scat porn I once watched. No, there's no poo in this porn. I mean, in this song. It's just my face is made out of poo. That's all. That's why, as long as you don't smell my face, you should be fine. Well, I can't say it did. Still clear as mud. I stayed at home playing sick and ate all the vanilla ice cream while playing and singing on microphone's Susie Quattro albums, pretending I'm her. CJ and JB are in a deep, deep discussion at the moment. 48 crash, it still holds up. When infest trash, I love you. Ski pa 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 paro. Renaissance Festival trash, I love you. Renaissance Festival trash, I love you. Sounds like a good title for your memoir. You know, Lady Lou, the problem we're going to have here is no matter how deep their discussion is, we're not going to have an easier time explaining what we're talking about. Because it's not clear what we're talking about either. My tilt is different, and she had never met an actual being with this. With 4 channels, I was the remote control. It was easy to keep up with back then. But with my little brother, when my little brother was born, oh boy, he had a big job. You'll never return anything sent by chainmail. I love the signs of the thorium. What's going on there? I have to find out. Are you just like cutting and pasting things at random or something? Or I'm not sure what you were trying to get at here at all. I'm wholly and thoroughly confused. Perhaps you're Psyduck. I love the signs of thorium in the morning. The faint glow, despite the darkness. You know what I love doing? I love licking radioactive paint to make my watch face glow. That's why today I'm reading J. Edgar Hoover's Masters of Deceit. That's a funny book. It's so fucking like garbage. It's ridiculous. There are no legitimate critiques of anything in this book. It's a strange fucking book. Like I'll read you just the table of contents so you can get how strange it is. Like, why would you organize a book about communism like this? I have no idea. I will tell a bedtime story in a little bit. Part 1, who is your enemy? Part 2, how communism began. Part 3, the communist appeal in the United States. Part 4, life in the party. Part 5, the communist Trojan horse in action. Part 6, the communist underground. Part 7, conclusion, which includes communism, a false religion. And 24, how to stay free. Well, his recommendations on how to stay free are very strange. how to stay free, okay? The first way to stay free, according to him, is to be Christian. That's the first way to stay free is you got to be Christian. The second, basically, is the gist of it. So, it says here, this is way number one to stay free. We as a people have not been sufficiently articulate and forceful in expressing pride in our traditions and ideals. In our homes and schools, we need to learn how to let freedom ring. In all the civilized world, there is no story which compares with America's effort to become free and to incorporate freedom in our institutions. This story, told factually and dramatically, needs to become the basis for our American unity and for our unity with all free peoples. I am sure most Americans believe that our light of freedom is a shining light. As Americans, we should stand up, speak of it, and let the world see this light rather than conceal it. For too long, we've had a tendency to keep silent while the communists, their sympathizers, and their fellow travelers have been telling the world what is wrong with democracy. Suppose every American spent a little time each day, less than the time demanded by the communists, in studying the Bible and the basic documents of American history, government, and culture. The result would be a new America, vigilant, strong, but ever humble in the service of God. In no way, shape, or form would it be the case that if every American spent a little time each day reading the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and I don't know, some random piece of SCOTUS case law, that we would in fact attain this vigilant, strong, but humble America, right? At no point in this whole first section, when he's talking about how we need to promote this American value of freedom, does he articulate in any way, shape, or form what it is or how it's distinct from communism. Ridiculously. Talk about a TE fucking tard. You know, this guy, how much more TE tarded could you be? Number two. Then there's the emphasis on training of youth. First, youth gravitates towards youth. The young person who feels left out may remain a solitary, or he may, according to his background and makeup, join a delinquent gang. But given half a chance, youth gravitates towards companionship with competent, generous, and experienced adults. Our youth want not only to talk to adults, they want to work with adults. It is a fine thing for them to have their own groups, but it is better if, in addition, they can participate in shared projects with adults. If the adults can show, in action, that it is possible to combine high idealism with solid practicality and patience, the results will enhance character and citizenship development manyfold. So his second step to staying free is have kids hang out with grown-ups more? Is that what he's saying? Ay, ay, ay. Now, number three. This one I like the initial. I liked it when I first read the first thing, and then when I read the rest of it, it was like, oh my lord. 3. The communists stress action. This means carrying out our responsibilities now, not tomorrow, the next day, or never. To communists, the party means continual action, not just talk, waiting for annual elections, meetings, or affairs. With us, action must supplement good intentions in building the America of the future. We need to provide our youth with activity groups to give them only a high standard of material advantages, or a constant diet of recreation is not enough. Recreation must be made part of a life of responsibility. Otherwise, it becomes merely a preface to boredom. Our young people, as well as adults, need to be working members of our republic and citizens on duty at all times. So, talk about not getting the way a thesis works, right? His thesis is that communists stress action, which is true. The natural conclusion to say from this is the problem here is you've got individuals who are engaging in action that is not dictated by the parliamentary process. In other words, ideally, action occurs very rarely because it's almost always negated by the parliamentary process. That's the point to make here. If your thesis is the communists stress action, but T.E. Tart here has no fucking idea what he's doing when he's writing this book. He's just, and also it's good if people are responsible and serious about their jobs. And also it's good if young people hang out with grown-ups. And also Christian good. And it's like, obviously, I agree with the central tenet of this book that communism is bad and freedom and liberty are good. But this book, in no way, shape, or form, makes that case at all. Number 4, communists accent the positive. In their deceptive and perverted way, they are always purporting to stand for something positive, better, higher, etc., or trademarks in their language. Again, here's your thesis, right? We as Americans need to recognize that it is not the state's responsibility to improve people's lives. Rather, individuals are responsible for their own autonomy. It's a natural thing to follow that by any reasonable person's thinking, no matter what you believe, right? That's what naturally follows that. Here's what follows it from J. Edgar Hoover. We, too, in the true sense of the word, should strive for goals that are genuinely better, higher, and more noble, trying to improve the self-community and nation. A strictly negative attitude or philosophy of just staying afloat, all too common today, will never meet the impact of the communist challenge. So, in other words, because the communists are positive, we need to be positive too. And, of course, there's nothing actionable at all about any of this garbage, right? It's all just vagaries and platitudes. But this is how to stay free, according to J. Edgar Hoover. How to stay free includes such genius notions as read the Bible, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence a little bit every day. It includes, number 2, what was number 2 again? Okay, so it includes, number 1 is we have to be proud of our traditions and ideals, which includes reading the Bible and basic documents of American history. Number 2 is children should hang out with grown-ups more. Number 3 is we need to make sure that kids don't have too much recreation or too many material advantages, because everybody needs to be working members of our republic and citizens on duty at all times. That's how to stay free? From what? Number 4 is be positive. Be positive about America. Number 5, most important of all, according to J. Edgar Hoover, to stay free, most important of all is faith. Let us not blind ourselves to the fact that communists do have a faith. True, it is falsely placed, but still it inspires them to sacrifice, devotion, and a perverted idealism. The late Mother Bloor, the party's woman, hero, often praised Walt Whitman's The Mystic Trumpeter as the poem she loved best. It seems, she said, to prophesy the coming of a new world. War, sorrow, suffering gone, the rank earth purged, nothing but joy left. The ocean filled with joy, the atmosphere all joy. Joy, joy, and freedom, worship, love, joy, and the ecstasy of life. Enough to merely be, enough to breathe. Joy, joy, all over joy. She is trying to identify communism with the dream of a world of joy. She is exploiting Walt Whitman, yet her feeling shows the lure of communist faith. If communists can be so inspired from error, falsehood, and hate, just think what we could do with truth, justice, and love. I'm thrilled to think of the even greater wonders America could fashion from its rich, glorious, and deep tradition. All we need is faith, real faith. So again, and he goes, here's how you stay free. The communists aren't free because of their bad use of faith. So we need to stay free by using a lot of faith, but doing it right. The communists are bad because they indoctrinate the youth. So we need to indoctrinate the youth harder, but do it right. The communists are bad because they try to isolate people into demographic groups. So we should have kids hang out with adults is the least responsive to it in some way, I guess. Like, so I think even then he says, like, basically the communists are doing it, so we need to do it too. I was like, what even is number 5? What is that? What is the point of it? It's that we have to have faith in what? It's like, this book is basically saying, all right, look, we've got to deal with these gosh darn criminals. They rob, steal, they rob, they assault, they murder, they deceive. In order to deal with these darn criminals, number 1, we need to start robbing. Number 2, we need to start assaulting. And number 3, we need to start murdering. Because if the bad guys are going to do it, and we're going to stay ahead of them, we better do it even harder. Talk about frame locked, right? Ignoring that it matters what the criteria are in the first place that you use to establish who the bad guys are, and you have to keep those same criteria after you've named them, right? You know, just toss them aside and be like, now we're no longer evaluating good guys and bad guys, and whatever we do is fine, and whatever they do is always bad, once we've established the label. Enantiodromia? Enantiodromia? What the? Why does he call the emergence of the unconscious opposite in the course of time? What does that mean? The emergence of the unconscious opposite in the course of time. Does it mean that my NI emerges later in life? What does it mean? This is a problem with Carl Jung. He doesn't mean things. The irony of all our lives, not just mine, does it make me feel better that everyone has to deal with this? This is that the only message I'm getting from God, oh my God. It means the dude's basically becoming a communist despite communism. And basically, what it really means is the guy doesn't understand that the reason America is good is because it's not doing indoctrination. And if the communists are bad because they're indoctrinating, the way to defeat the bad guys is not to become them, right? It's not to indoctrinate us. We should need to indoctrinate harder. So silly. And there's at no point does he actually define or make any meaningful contribution at all into the discussion of why or what comprises legitimate freedom versus authoritarianism or totalitarianism. It's like, if you're not addressing the mechanisms by which democratic institutions actually preserve liberty, then you are doing it wrong and you shouldn't be writing books about it. Alien 60 says, hey Eric, what's up? Pay attention to me. I will. I am paying attention to you right now. If Jesus has died for all my sins, I just now want to commit more. You know what he did? He established a sin pay trust and annuity fund so that he continues paying for your sins even as you continue making them, even though he's now dead. It's quite a remarkable achievement. It was like Social Security, except a good idea instead of a terrible idea. Mm-mm-mm. No. There are a lot of strict rules about resurrection. Self-help lines. Jesus can't resurrect anytime he feels like it. Okay? He only is going to come back to his regular body. Remember, his body right now is mostly just dirt. And the teeny little bits of specks of bone and stuff. Other than that, it's just all dirt. It's all decayed and biodegraded. But when his spirit comes back down to earth for the rapture, all that dirt will coalesce and rebuild itself into his body. Unfortunately, what does that mean? That for at least the first couple of weeks until it settles in, everybody who meets Jesus during the rapture is just going to think, Jesus Christ, that guy's dusty. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-da. Hilarious jokes. Mom watching this series about the Mormons, and the thing is, use the center's money to open gambling machines and yes, prostitution, legal prostitution in Nevada, which they hold a lot of holdings into. Well, I mean, people invest in things because they expect those investments to pay off, not because they approve of the thing they invest in. You know, like, if I were somebody who invested rather than frittered away my life, I would definitely invest in, like, your sin stuff, because it's much more market durable than other kind of things you can invest in. People who like to gamble, they're not going to stop gambling. They're going to do it for the rest of their lives. People who like to smoke, they're not going to stop smoking. They're going to do it for the rest of their lives. You know. Well, I mean, the internet means there's exactly as much propaganda as you wish to consume available for you at any moment. And of course, it's understandable how we're kind of like locked in a tricky spot as a species, right? Because either way we are, we're not epistemologically suited to understand things well. So it's like, in the best case scenario, in the very best case scenario, you've got someone in charge who's always going to run a risk of not taking something seriously until he's experienced it himself. SI forth. If you got somebody in charge, an ENTP in charge or something like that, who's as epistemologically endowed as possible to do the job well, you're still going to have that epistemological weakness, and it's going to be implicit to the person. That's the best you can do. Every other alternative is a worse epistemological setup for being in charge. Well, if you're an INTP, there's insufficient decisiveness, insufficient action. At least with an ENTP, you're going to get the actual real action you need to get, exactly as much as you need to get it. And it's going to just sort of happen, and it's not going to be so. I mean, what won't happen with an ENTP president that would happen with an INTP president is the INTP president would hum and haw and not make the decision to do a thing that needs to be done to create the impact that needs to be created. An ENTP president, like me anyway, especially me, would incorporate these various cognitive function advantages that people have and try to have advisors to talk to me. Like, you know, I would get an ESTP in there to talk to me about actual impacts. Okay, I'm planning on shooting these missiles at these people right now and killing them. Can you talk to me about what I'm not thinking about impact-wise here, besides the fact that it's going to kill people? I know that, but it's my job as president, and I'm willing to do it. But talk to me, Talk to me more about impact. I'm aware of the fact that I might sometimes underestimate the amount of splash this cannonball is going to make, right? So that's the best we can do, is somebody who is aware of his own epistemological weakness and has put someone in place to try to attend to it directly. And very few types are even capable of doing that. If any types other than, it's like if an IFJ is president, the challenge is going to be for them, no matter how smoothly things go, there's going to be a tendency to not upset apple carts that may need to be upset, right? If you've got ESFP in charge, you've got a tendency to upset every apple cart that doesn't need to be upset. Like, you look at Trump, well, no matter how much you loved him or disliked him or whatever, the one thing nobody can deny is that he was extremely divisive. That people either hated him or loved him. That he himself had no problem representing only some of the population, basically. That he said, if you're opposed to me, in my mind, your opinion doesn't matter. Whatever you say doesn't matter. You're just part of the liberal media conspiracy or whatever. He had no mechanism of legitimately, successfully incorporating the superior wisdom of others about anything. So it's a tricky business, and it all boils down to these epistemological biases. If you're an NI person, you have an epistemological bias against the realities of this particular situation that make it not subject to your universalism. If you're an SI person, you have a bias against the universal realities until you experience them for yourself. I had this example the other day. I was bringing a trash can in from the street. I looked at the trash can. I knew for sure the trash can had been emptied. So we have a green trash can, a blue trash can, and a black trash can. The black trash can, which has actual trash in it, is always picked up last. So I'd already moved in the green and blue trash cans, and I had seen that the black trash can hadn't been picked up yet. I looked inside of it and the trash is still there. So then later I go out, and I can tell that the trash has been taken away because the trash can is no longer pushed flush against the curb. It's out a few inches and kind of a little bit at an angle. So the truck's obviously been there and moved it. There's no possible way I could have moved it because I'd seen it since I had moved those other trash cans, right? Despite this reality, that my intuition was very determinate and clear on the fact that the trash can is now empty, you can take it in, Eric. What did I necessarily do? And why? Because I'm SI. I open the lid of the trash can and look inside the empty trash can to verify that it's empty. Of course it is. And does that even save me any time? I mean, as soon as I grab the things and start going like this to push it, I would be able to tell either way. Why am I looking inside of it? Because I want to experience with my eyes whether there is trash in there or not. I bet you SI people are much more likely, although this may be true of every human being, I'm not sure. But I'm hypothesizing SI people are more likely to look at their own poo after they're done making it, and for longer, than NI people will. Just a hypothesis. We could test it, but it would be gross to test, so let's not. They don't need to justify it. When you invest money, the justification is because you believe the investment will pay off. That's the only justification one needs to invest money. One might have justifications to not invest, such as this investment is illegal. investments can't really be immoral per se because you're investing in something, you're not doing it yourself. I mean, I suppose you could say it would be immoral for me to. You can create impossible scenarios where somebody with no interest in a matter provides material support to another party that's doing something bad, but those sets of required mutual conditions never seem to actually exist in real life. Jack Nicholson Jack Nicholson is part of Corduroy's voice as well. Sometimes Corduroy's gotta be like, I just don't understand. There's a little bit of Jack Nicholson in Corduroy's voice. Like I said before, I think Corduroy is a cross between Jack Nicholson and Foghorn Leghorn. Well, I know. I see what you said there. I'll read it. No, but my dad was a ringer for Jack Nicholson and can play a wonderful part in The Shining, as he played almost every day of my effing life. And he's still alive, too mean to die. He said that, not me. He said what? That you, Carla, played a part in his life being like The Shining? Or I'm still confused. There's too much of a propensity to make it some lesser function that intuitives already have mastered unless they need to prove their intuition and then they forget something so they're intuitive. I'm not sure what you're talking about specifically, but I know this, that the thing is, no, I mean, the thing is, Self-Help Lounge, SI is a critical component in extroverted intuition. And the problem really is that we've not distinguished, in calling people who have either extroverted or introverted intuition in the first or second slot all intuitives, we've mixed two very different groups of people together. Half of the intuitives are SI particularist knowers, subjective knowers, you might say. Which is to say, they know things from their own personal experience first. And that includes me. Now, because it's fourth slot, I'm an extroverted intuitor first and an illogical decider or deconstructor second. So what that ends up meaning is that what you hear come out of my mouth is much more trading in the currency of NI, but it originates with SI experiences. I'll have an experience and say, I wonder if this generalizes out, think it through, meow. He didn't have a son in that movie, did he? Well, the point is, I mean, I'm not the kind of person who had you locked up. That certainly isn't me. I don't know who that is. To deconstruct something is to say, this has a non-holistic element to it, right? Something cannot be deconstructed without being destroyed. I tend to use the word to deliberate things out or to determine a conclusion. I've said decide in the past, but that's not a good choice of word. Determine is the best word. Deconstruct is not a bad word, really, but for a deliberative function, but it's a little liberal arts PhD program. The point is, it's not possible to deconstruct why Ranking of Kings is a great anime. Ranking of Kings is absolutely a great anime. And makes me cry. It made both me and Rachel cry so much. We watched the whole. It has one season. It's a complete arc. It's a nice complete thing, right? And it's about a little deaf boy who has no strength at all, who's the son of the greatest, strongest king, and the younger brother of his kind of driven older brother Daida. And then the deaf boy Boji makes this friend of this gray blob on the ground named Kage. And there's no possible way to describe this cartoon to me that would make me have any desire whatsoever to watch it. There's no possible way you could describe it honestly to me and have me go, oh, that sounds like something I'd enjoy. And yet I cannot. It was unbelievably emotionally engaging, so evocative for me, and so emotionally provoking of me. Rachel and I would sit here with a roll of paper towels. I'd be, oh my God, Boji, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And it's like, it's so simple too. It's simple little things like Kage, the friend, thinks now that Boji's king, Boji doesn't need him anymore. And he tries to make it on its own, but it's hard. And then Rachel and I were both like, oh my God, this is so sad. It's like sad at the level of like a storybook when you read to as a little child in some level. It shouldn't possibly work on us. But it does, and it's just, you can't explain why that cartoon works. You can't explain why it's good. You can't explain what makes it, because as soon as you deconstruct it, you've taken the dynamism out of it in a way that makes it impossible to operate in static things and then put it back together again and have it work again, right? The movie diverged wildly from the book. I'm talking about the movie, not the book. Oh, we're talking about Shining. Oh, I've never read the book. Yeah, sorry. I've only seen the movie like one time maybe. Look at each and every aspect correctly. It's not because I'm white, blonde, blue-eyed, but now apparently in a crazy. Well, look, everybody at some point in their life is a bitch. Everybody at some point in their life is a little bitch. And everybody at some point in their life is a country without a re. And we should all be able to distinguish between the three. This is something I discussed early on in my YouTube career with Flow State, aka Taylor. The importance of being able to make these distinctions. When you are being a bitch, usually it's because you need to go to bed. You've been up on speed for too long and you're being a bitch. That's when I'm being a bitch, that's what usually it is. If you're being a little bitch, well, then that's like when I'm not checking my email because I think that somebody that I know I probably pissed off might have written me and I don't want to see the email subject title even because then they're going to feel like responsible to look at it. Then I'm being a little bitch, you know. And not facing the fact and not like going to find out how mad people are at the mess I made, right? Like, and I'll just walk away and not look behind me. Me being a little bitch. Now, when I'm being a country without a re, not in the videos I made about the subject, but during the live stream, at a point when Jonathan Basanti said, in fact, or somewhere around there, he said, "You're being a little unfair to Peter Dintici, don't you think?" I wasn't being unfair to him, but I was being a country without a re. And that's not okay. It's just my stratagem of being a country without a re, it doesn't rely on unfairness like almost everybody else's does. But it's still not okay for other reasons. You should make notes, Eric, because I have to find out what those two things are again and then figure out how I fit in, which I apparently don't, and I'm not proud of it. I just know what I know. No one thinks we should find a new word for that. Joy. I hate the word joy. Well, when I think of joy, I think of a lady named Joy or maybe the dish soap. Those are the first two things I think of. After that, I think of maybe I've mispronounced the word toy. Joy is something that's usually followed by to the world. And the rarely used passive, what is it? The rarely used present tense passive voice intensive form. The Lord is come. It's a rarely used form, right? That structure. The Lord is come is passive voice present tense. That's why it sounds so strange. But it's correct. Because it means it's neither he had come, but now he's left. Nor is it he has come, and he's still here. But he is come. Which means his here-ness is now a permanent status. I guess. Eric, do you think that listening skill is linked to SI users? Because some people have trouble with listening. No, I think listening links foremost to both individuals' attentional assumption scaffolds. Like, so, in other words, if my dad is telling me a story about, well, like, about this bill, this bill about, or perspective bill or something about transfer of ownership regulations regarding nursing homes in California, he's telling me these things, and he's showing me this article, right? Now, when he's telling me, I'm listening very well. I'm listening to what he's saying. But I'm still very confused. Why could you be confused if you're listening to what he's saying and you understand the words just fine? Because I still have no idea why he's telling me this. Now, in this particular instance, I've learned what this is. That the reason he tells me things like this is I'm supposed to be interested in things that are relevant to our overall situation as a family, even though I have no decision-making power in those things, nor will my knowledge about them be relevant in any way to anything I can do, because my dad doesn't like to let Eric decide things, right? So, okay, why are you telling me this? Because I'm supposed to be interested in it. But I'd only be interested in it if I knew what frame of reference I was supposed to understand or use this information in. Because it's not interesting in and of itself in an SI way. Like, well, it links to what's going on with us somehow, right? Yes, it does link to what's going on with us somehow, but it's actually not relevant at all to our particular nursing home situation. And so as a consequence, I'm like, I really don't get why you're telling me this stuff. Why are you explaining this to me? I understand what you're explaining just fine. Okay, no, I get it. This is a law that does this, and here's the reasoning why. And the reasoning is linking to Medicaid and Medicare, okay. And this confuses you because you understand this thing really well, and you already know that Medicaid and Medicare only link to nursing homes under this very specific circumstance. So, do you want me to resolve this for you? Like, do you want me, so I have some answers for you, Dad, if you'd like. Wow, how can you have any answers? You haven't even read the article. Because the answers I have are conditional. Is the correct thing, but he won't be able to hear me, I say, well, so first of all, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Dad. Are you getting at why is this bill happening at all because you don't believe the Medicare Medicaid argument? Are you asking me to explain why the Medicare Medicaid argument might be relevant even though it contradicts facts, or how it might be interpreted differently to mean something differently so that it does make sense to you? Do you want me to reassure you that this is not relevant at all to our situation, won't impact us at all? He doesn't. The answer to that is never yes. Because what does that require? N-I. You don't know that, son. You don't know that. Okay, Dad. So what ended up happening in that conversation? I listened, but I didn't. I listened, I heard and understood everything, and none of that stuff that I just said I did made me unconfused, ultimately. I mean, people who lack listening skills for real are people who insist on talking over you all the time. The thing is, people can reasonably and correctly accuse me of doing some of that, of talking over people sometimes. But generally that occurs because they've ignored something I've said or whatever. So it's like they go, I ask them a question like, what is a banana used for in the movie Beverly Hills Cop? Okay? What is a banana used for in the movie Beverly Hills Cop? And then he says, and another thing, the banana plantations in Panama used slave labor for many years. Well, when he gets to, and another thing, the banana plant, I'll say, hold on, answer my question. What was the banana used for in the movie Beverly Hills Cop? Well, why do you want to know that? What does that have to do with anything? Answer the question. It's meow or something else or I don't know. What's your answer? This is the problem I have, right? This is when I start talking over people and I'm not listening to them. It's because is because they've completely not listened to me, right? I asked them a question. So they need to answer the question I ask, or else they are not listening to me. So why should I continue listening to them when I need clarification on something? You know, that's why I ask them a question in the first place. I'm trying to clarify what they mean. The problem is most people don't want to mean things. They want to affirm things and have you agree with it, or negate things and have you agree with it. God, I'm jealous of that sound. I was born in the Good Samaritan Hospital. Maybe my bioism, so thankful that you're up, thankful that you're up, thankful that you're up to have a cup and doing live streams at this hour. When everyone here has gone to bed at 9 p.m., supposedly, according to those propagandists. Surprised you, eh? No, you did not. What was I surprised by? You've confused me on multiple occasions tonight, but I would not say you've surprised me. Hey, Eric, since you said you would pay attention to us this time, I thought I might share with you this little analogy about N-E-S-E-S-I-N-I-T-E-T-I. I'm curious what you would think about it. Well, you'll have your curiosity satiated. You think I don't pay attention to you this time. You think I don't pay good attention to you? You should go try hanging out on CJ's stream. He didn't pay attention to you at all. So, I'm Moxie. Or they want you to listen to their words because it has impact on them? Well, I mean, the thing is, yeah, the problem is people use words for different reasons a lot of times. There's purely instrumental things like, hey, can you close that door behind you? Something like that, you know? That's a very different kind of use of language than we should define this as that for some purpose. And if you operate under a frame of reference in which language is supposed to be instrumental in the close the door kind of way, then miggity meow, you know. It would be a little bit long and in multiple texts. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize, Alien 60. No, you don't. You know what you can do with your apology? I want you to wrap it up into a ball, scrunch it up into a ball. I want you to put a candy coating on it, put a stick in the bottom, and I want you to suck on it. Okay? That's what I want you to do with your apology. Apologies are important and matter, so they should be reserved for when you've done something wrong. That's what I think. You have taken the diamond out of it. Excellent, all right, beautifully said. And I do that thing, taking the diamond out of it. I guess I did. I too effing that much as a mother. I think that maybe. Okay. Although, from a distance, obviously, Boba Fett said it, some people like to talk because it makes them feel good, I suppose. Kind of like ranting. I like to talk. I like to be listened to. But the thing is, you know, there's also the context in which what you're doing. So if I'm watching a movie, obviously I'm listening to the movie because I want to listen to the movie. If I'm communicating with another person, they might not be communicating what I want to have communicated at me. If I don't like the movie and it's communicating what I don't want it to communicate to me in ways that don't make me feel good, I will just turn it off. But life's more complicated than that. When you're communicating with another person and they're communicating what you don't want them to communicate, or in ways that you don't want them to communicate, then it's much more challenging. You can't just turn them off and watch something else if they have some role in your life. I mean, you can trace a lot of. You can trace so many of humanity's fracture lines to to things that we've misgeneralized. So you can look at the Cold War, the Vietnam War, Korean War as misgeneralizing World War II and not getting the NI of it, right? Churchill understood. Look, fuckers, we've got a ticking clock on this war. We've got this many months left of actual war with Japan, after which we're not going to get to be war anymore. So, are we going to do something about the Russians while we're here? We might as well. You know that Stalin's a fucking sociopath and a totalitarian fucktard. We're going to do something or not? But let's do it. Come on. We know we're here. We're queer. We don't want any more bears. Let's go. But the rest of everybody was misgeneralizing and thinking you can learn lessons that aren't taught by World War II, but that might have been taught by World War II if you didn't think about it very well. It's kind of like that. Attacking those people is kind of like responding to being attacked. No, it's not. No, it is not. Getting involved in the Civil War is kind of like stopping the Nazis. No, it's not. At all. It's nothing like it at all. Eric, you subjectively think that your words are subjectively objective? Well, if you subjectively think my words, whatever, what you mean is you just arbitrarily, for the purpose of argumentation, we can replace the word subjective with arbitrary. Because if something is subjective, truly, then it doesn't have any non-arbitrary purpose argumentationally. So as soon as you establish that what you're saying is said subjectively, quote unquote, what you really are saying is what I am saying is said arbitrarily. I am not providing justifications for it. If you are providing justifications that have any carry, then you're providing some sort of justification that's not entirely subjective. It has to have some link to some externality that we can treat as objective data and have mutual access to analyze to qualify the justification of some sort. So the thing is, as always, almost when these kind of things pop up, people can play word games and stuff, but that's because they're not understanding how language actually works. It's subjective and objective are tools of communication. They're words that we use to communicate things. They're not shining crowns or halos that sit above concepts we like and or are denied concepts we don't like. Which is how a lot of people use them. It's ridiculous. But you see, it's not how they use them. It's instead well, it's what happens when you don't get the concept, but you can make it work. Okay? So, this is, I will read it out loud in a second, okay? I'll go through, what I do, I'll go back and I'll catch up and I'll read everything I haven't read yet, and then I'll go start talking, and then I'll go back and I'll keep repeating that process. So, okay, what was I just talking about? Oh, right. So there's this experiment with human children versus, I think it's chimpanzee babies. And here's how it plays out. let's say you've got a box with some kind of latch mechanism that you've got to twist once this way, and then push this way, and then twist this way, okay, to get it open. And you get a teacher to teach these children, human children, how to open it. But you have the teacher provide extra unnecessary steps. Tap the glass twice, then turn it. Then hit both sides, then push it. Then rub the front, then turn it. Now it'll open. And you teach human children and chimpanzee children how to open this box by demonstrating this process, the exact same process to both sets of children. The human children will persist in the unnecessary behaviors much longer, many of them indefinitely, while the chimpanzees will eliminate those unnecessary behaviors very quickly. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells you if you are struggling with understanding language the way I'm talking about it, as something that people do rather than treating the words with this weird kind of objective analysis-y thing, you're stuck in that state of being a small human who's operating under a fundamentally wrong frame of reference. That the reason and the way that you know how to open that box is because you have learned to follow steps that somebody else has shown you. It's a fundamentally false frame of reference. That is not why you can open the box. You can open the box because you turned it this way, pushed it this way, and turned it this way. Right? So in this instance, we can see how the capacity to frame better causes human beings to be susceptible to frame lock in a unique way. And that's what's happening with people who aren't hearing me entirely when I'm talking about how language operates with things like objective, subjective, operationalizing definitions and stuff like that. You're saying, no, I'm serious. I saw her. I swear to God, she tapped both sides of this box 3 times. And I'm saying, okay, yeah, yes, she did. That's true. But let's get out of the frame of reference that what we know about the box is limited to what she showed us. And let's do a little bit of problem solving on the box ourselves. So this is an example of frame lock, right? And of course, the chimpanzees are much more fundamentally frame locked than human beings ever can be, because they're frame locked into not being able to use language to understand things. All right, now I will read aloud all these things that have been said. All right, let's go all the way back to here. They have become more sophisticated in painting a disgusting picture of Hillary as a boogeyman. When she was 30, they said she had sex with aliens. She was the first AOC. Hillary Clinton is an anti-polar bureaucrat. So, yes, she's awful. And she's really, in some sense, the worst kind of awful. But it's as simple as this. Stupidity, training, and ego. Stupidity, expertise, and ego. That's all it is. Try to paint her as anything worse than that is to get her wrong. Bill Clinton would still be in power and probably the most popular POTUS ever if only he implemented an unconstitutional seizure of power, rejecting the amendment that limits presidents to 2 terms. Boba Fett. After FDR, we changed the Constitution. No more 4-term presidents. Alien 60. The analogy is, imagine a big bubble machine generator that has it's a liquid source that it generates from. It's fine. I'm keeping up with you. Got you. Okay. It's a giant bubble machine, and it's got like a tube dipping into a big source of bubble juice. Gotcha. Big tub of bubble juice. All right. I'm with you. Men like God's knows. She was into women and had a fetish of wearing multiple pantyhose all day long to work up a sweat for her lady friends to enjoy. Ew, I wish I hadn't read that out loud. The bubbles have multiple and different shapes. Also, each bubble has its internal structure so as to maintain its solidity. Namely, it's more or less round. Right? Or are they not that kind of bubbles? These are magical bubbles that would be different shapes. The bubbles have multiple and different shapes. Okay. They're not soap bubbles. They're special kind of bubbles. Fine. And they have multiple and different kind of shapes. Are there a finite number? You say multiple. We need to know, are we talking a trillion or are we talking 5? It matters. When you're dressed, my issue about joy. Remember, these are distinctions you're choosing to draw about the bubbles. When you're dressed, my issue about joy, and then went into the contracts or the way things are said, I think of he is risen, always hurt my brain ears. Okay, that's too long for the chat, Eric. This is inefficient. Is there another place I can share it onto, or can 200 letter? I can't disable it. It's not inefficient. I have no sympathy for this because you just need to watch a replay of one of CJ's streams while I'm there. And I have written half a fucking book by the time I've been there 30 minutes. So you can write as much as you want here. You just need to push enter occasionally. It's not a big deal. Also, the bubbles can stick together to form a larger structure of bubbles that can cause an actual impact on the outside world. So basically, these bubbles are like atoms that can form molecules. And sometimes if they form a certain kind of molecule, they can have an impact. So, for example, when hydrogen knocks into O2 and forms a molecule of water, it gets something wet. Okay, I got you. Where are we going with this? Let's find out. Now to explain. NE is the bubble generator. No. NE is the bubble generator, and the bubbles are ideas. A liquid source is SI, and the internal structure of the ideas would be held by TI. I guess you have to say the liquid source is mostly SI. It's ideally an 80-20 SI-SE mix, maybe. Because it's certainly plausible to incorporate physicalities into NE generating. The problem here is this. The way NE works is it's not a bubble generator, okay? It's more like those kind of glues where you have to mix two different ones together to activate it, and then you have a certain amount of time to get it set before it's forever solid. Epoxy mixed glues kind of things. It's like that, okay? So you're taking a couple of threads of things and you're combining them in certain ratios within a certain frame of reference that's either implied or explicit, depending on the context. And then there's kind of this rodeo where you're right in this bowl, seeing if what you've generated will come together in a way that, cool, it's perfect now. Or, oh fuck, I glued it all at an angle and now it looks all fucked up. I don't want this anymore. So with NE, it's not quite, it's like that. You might also say, another analogy of it is, I say, you gotta, it's like trying to make a statue out of mashed potatoes. You don't really know what you're gonna make until you mash them around in your hands and push them together a bit. There's an active process. Extroverted intuition is not a bubble generator. It's the part of you that is expressing threads. Whether you end up knitting an actual scarf with them, that requires the other epistemological pieces to fall into place, you know? So it's like not every idea that comes out, in other words, has a structure. The problem with your analogy is not a terrible one, but one of the problems is it's assuming the extroverted intuition isn't really doing anything except pulling and putting, and the process by which it goes from meow to meow is unclear. It's not unclear. It's created, constructed. You can walk it back. So, in other words, let's take an SI thing and an SE thing. Here's the SE thing, cherry Coke. Here's the SI part. The year was 1987, and the Coca-Cola Company had introduced a new product. Truly new? No. In one sense, a very old product, a throwback to the days of soda fountains of yore, where maraschino cherry juice would be used to add a little extra jazz to the Coca-Cola. That's right, it was the rollout of Cherry Coke. I remember, as my mother and I entered the supermarket, my excitement and anticipation approaching the Coca-Cola aisle. Will my eyes spy the sight of a cherry, indicating this Coke is different, flavored in a more remarkable way? Okay, so this is any, right? The bubble generator thing, well, you got your Coke. You got your SI thing, which is just, I don't really have any memories specifically about Cherry Coke drawing it came to mind, except I do remember when it came out and thinking like it was new, and then at some point getting that, oh, it used to be common when there were soda fountains, but because they don't have soda fountains anymore, Cherry Coke stopped existing, you know. So anyway, then I used that and I went into storyteller mode. Storyteller mode is basically accessing an NI frame, trying to put an NI frame around it. In this one, what it ended up being, I didn't know it was going to go in this direction when I started. It ended up being a kind of story that I hate, and that like teachers encourage kids to write in school. You know, like, no, what you're going to do now, we're going to spend time working on, it's nonfiction, it's autobiographical, anecdotes-based story writing. And your thesis is the time that you had an experience that really made an impact on you, and then the kid writes something like I was just talking about, right? As my mother and I approached the Coca-Cola aisle, I couldn't help but tremble in anticipation. Would I get to see a cherry on the basket? You know, some stupid ass shit like that, right? But once the NI took shape, it had no choice but to be an example of that. So I can walk it back as to where it came from, how I got each of the steps, and I can even point to when and why it became what it did for NI reasons. So in that regard, when you talk about any being a bubble machine, the biggest problem is this. I, Eric, extrovertedly intuit. I don't have a bubble machine in me. It's me doing this. It's not something inside of me. When we talk about cognitive functions, what we mean is I am a person who pays so much attention to talking, words, how they parse and such, all the time, that I express in this fashion, You see what I express. You don't see what I don't express, obviously, but you're not missing much. With other people, that's very much not the case. There are some people in the world that they have a rich, deep inner life and experience that other people don't have access to. They maybe have imaginary worlds they spend a lot of time in, like I do too, but other people have access to them. I'll tell you all about it. I don't care. I'll tell you all about my pretending when I go to sleep. I'm not embarrassed about it, you know. I used to be, but I'm not anymore. I've managed to own it. Can we not get all super political and meow, please? I'm not in the mood to politically meow. It's like political ugliness, right? If we're going to talk politics, can't we just agree to start with an actual problem that's articulated in a non-politicized fashion and see what we, first and foremost, if we, the United States, should do anything. And then second, if yes, then we can discuss what and how or why. But can we stop painting the narrative of what is? The biggest problem with politics is everybody is stuck in describing rather than, in other words, politics is like an ENTP. And everybody is like a fake ENTP. Instead of actually doing politics, they describe what politics would look like if you didn't know how to do politics. You know? Actual political discourse doesn't talk about these people and those people doing meow and being responsible for meow. And that's what you're doing. That's called writing a history thesis paper or something, like a PhD history thesis, where you say, I've got these grand explanations I want to provide that frame our historical experience in certain ways. Well, that's not politics, though. That's mythological. Now, and that doesn't necessarily mean, remember, mythology is not fake or wrong. It's it's holistic. And it's fine to be mythological, but don't mistake being mythological for being political. Self-Help Lounge says, if people tried to understand each other more clearly, politics would be easier. Nowadays, it's just people taking jabs at each other. Well, no, what I'm saying is, if people understood what politics was, they'd recognize they're not doing that. They're doing something else. It's not political conversation at all. I mean, the thing is, the biggest problem we have with politics is the notion that there's the biggest problem is our belief that the problem is a failure to agree on what's true. And that's not what the problem is. And so, politics is not about that. Politics is not caring to do good political discourse. You are not concerned about so much what's true as what meets justification criteria, right? Because the default in any political discourse is to negate. The burden is on the AF to change the status quo. If you are merely trying to change the status quo of other people's foundational AFs, and then you're not talking about politics. You're saying, no, first you need to understand this through George Soros or something like that. My question is, okay, I thought you wanted to talk about politics. Yeah, George Soros. Oh, that's not politics. You're doing mythology. Nothing wrong with mythology, but that's not politics. Real thinkers don't politic like that. And so, if we really want to have solvency about the problems with politics, quote unquote, what we need to do is get people to recognize the fact that politics is super boring and dry and not emotional at all. And that the thing they're doing is mythology. And they should go ahead and do that mythology as much as they want. But they should recognize that since they're mythologists rather than politicians or statesmen, they probably shouldn't vote or recommend policy advocacies or anything. They should just do their mythology. We need serious adults, you know? It's important. We can't... Mythologies are great, but that's not the work of government. When people recognize how boring actual politics is and acknowledge the fact that, oh, okay, I get it. Real adult politics is super boring, so we'll play mythology over here and get that we're not really talking about anything. That'd be great, you know. Or get that we don't expect to the actual statesmen to be listening to us. We get that we're not qualified to vote, you know. Right, so that's not talking about politics. If you're saying I'm a libertarian, not a conservative or liberal, you're not talking about politics. You're talking about you, and you're talking about group labels that will then be positioned in your mythologies. And then the ice giant conservatives came down. But the proud Valhallan Democrats, they rose up, and these are the characters you're creating in your mythologies. That's not political talk at all. And that's what people need to get. You don't want to talk about politics because it's incredibly boring. Would you like me to go more into the discussion of the prospective bill regarding regulating transfer of ownership rules for nursing homes in California, and the linkage to Medicaid and Medicare, and to further explain how that argumentation played out last night with me and my dad? Do you really want me to talk about that? You don't, because you don't care about politics. You care about mythology. And can't tell the difference. Unfortunately, I don't know why I say unfortunately. Incredibly fortunately, I grew up the son of a man who is mythologically tone deaf, and who also was a poli-sci professor and a philosophy PhD. Okay? And at the same time as being a poli-sci professor and a philosophy PhD, is mythology tone deaf, which means nothing ever means anything to that man, right? There is no larger meaning to anything. It's all policy wonk shit. The only larger meanings are him lamenting when the Supreme Court makes poor decisions. Even then, it's like, well, I mean, it's like they can say that, but how's it going to play out in the market? It couldn't possibly be sustainable. I'll say things like that, you know. So I had the glorious benefit of being deeply immersed in politics, real politics, from a very young age, debating real politics in high school, and only encountering the mythology parts of it really late in high school and into college. I never got any of the mythology parts at home. The mythology I had was this, that Christians needed to stop trying to do Christian stuff on public property. The mythologies I got were also this, that the Supreme Court was our good friend who protected us from the government in general. But those themes were never discussed. Right? I picked up those themes from him having issues with a lot of specific things, but he didn't turn them into any mythologies. Now, obviously, that's not good either. It is important to be able to, well, I mean, it's important for somebody to be able to do what I'm able to do, which is both understand when mythologies are salient and when they're getting in the way, and where we need to resolve certain sort of philosophical preconditions argumentationally, etc. It's complicated, but I understand it. But the point is, I was lucky. I was incredibly lucky, right? Who manages to be in? Because this is a beautiful thing, right? What's the most dangerous thing of all? Stupidity, expertise, and ego combined. My dad had expertise, and he had stupidity too. Okay, because let's not lie about it. Antipolar is its own kind of stupid. It is for sure. Okay, but blessedly, that particular kind of stupidity in my dad never manifested as ego in ways that conflicted with the truth, because his ego was locked only into the impact solvency side of things, not into the precision framing stuff. He was into the precision practicalities, the actual policy wonk shit, but he didn't have in place a meaningful metaframe. He never did. He didn't have a framework that explained why he thought this or that or the other thing. He didn't think it mattered what he actually thought, just all the things that he could say about it currently and link it to all these other particulars currently, you know? So, in other words, when his ego got in the way of something, it would be if I caught him being wrong. But that wasn't how he was stupid. He wasn't stupid in contradicting himself and being wrong. He was stupid in not getting the point of things. Then I just hit this blank look, like, because I'm saying it because, yeah, Dad, because that's two and two, and then put it together and 4. And okay, why are we having this conversation? Why did you? Never mind. My bad, Dad. I'm sorry. I once again have forgotten that I am living with you. What's the difference between the truth and reality? Truth, when used properly, again, is the status we afford to statements based on a 3-pronged evaluatory mechanism and the kind of statement that we're evaluating, as I've discussed plenty of times before. And it's not super complicated. There's only 4 kinds of statements. And they do have the most complicated one in terms of evaluatory criteria are going to be the normative statements. But descriptive, predictive statements, we usually have pretty straightforward evaluatory criteria for truth. So, in other words, if it depends what kind. Remember, whenever we establish a truth value for a statement, we are taking into consideration the framing, which is to say, why put troops on Russian borders? Let's look at this. Let's look at what Mrs. Mom here says. But in fact, the USSR, as in the United Soviet, isn't that what the goal of war in Ukraine is? Because maybe NATO remained necessary. Any way around it, Putin has stated he wants to recover lost territory. Okay, so here's a good thing here. Putin has stated he wants to recover lost territory. This is a fact, a statement that we can check for truth. If we can establish assorted sources who've quoted him saying something like that, meaning that, essentially, we can afford the status of truth. If I could find no example of a member stating anything like that, then I could say, Winston's mom, I'm going to have to call you out and say, please do provide the evidence here. Normally, I would afford you the benefit of the doubt, but it appears I can't find anything that actually suggests what you're saying is true, so please present me the evidence. Then presumably she could do so, right? And I would believe it or not, depending on whether the evidence actually justifies the claim or not. So the thing is, that's how I will determine whether I believe it, is whether it actually justifies it. What I mean by actually justifies it is that justification makes better sense than whatever justification I might be able to come up with on the negationary side, or better sense than an alternative narrative currently in place. No, reality. Are you listening to me, Imoxy? Listen, please. Remember that reality is not a statement, and that truth, when used properly, is a status an individual communicating affords to a statement. The problem is, people keep wanting, because words are static, they keep thinking that when static words are used in discussing dynamic elements of systems, that they can meaningfully do work by utilizing the static parts of the words and the ways that those work mechanically in terms of meaning conveyance. Once they've that they don't have to continue to account for the dynamism anymore. But in reality, what they end up with is a bunch of constructed things that have nothing to do anymore with the original thing, because they've lost all the dynamism of it, because they're focused on words as objects of analyses rather than as things people say. Bioweapons are not nearly as useful as nukes. Just from a foreign policy perspective, from a sort of international realist perspective, nukes make a much better deterrent than bioweapons, because there's a immediacy factor to nuclear weapons. The immediacy thing is what makes it work as a deterrent, as mutually assured destruction and such. The fact is, the truth is, if you think war is bad, nuclear weapons are the best thing that ever happened to the world. Now, I don't necessarily think war is bad, but if you do, you know, whether or not I think that the issue of is war bad is a category error. You cannot answer the question generally. You need to talk about a specific war, right? There is no general answer to the question, is war bad? It's always can only be answered, is this use of force justified? And then whether it was wise is a separate question. And that's the thing. It's like when we deal with things well, we don't make them more complicated, we make them less complicated. So, is war good or bad? Which proposed use of force are you attempting to justify? What do you mean? I'm asking if war is good or bad. Which use of force are you asking? Give me an example use of force, and then I can tell you whether it was justified or not based on some additional pieces of information. But it can never be determined as a general question because any normative assessment necessarily evaluates actual or prospective cases. Russia's not communist. It's a kleptocracy. No, Ukraine shouldn't give up anything. Ukraine should never give up their nukes in the first place. It's the immediacy thing that causes the deterrence. Because one of the reasons why wars always happened between various countries is because there's a time lag. So Emperor A goes, I think we can win this war. And even if I'm wrong, well, I can worry about that in a few months. That seems like a long ways away. The problem is, nuclear weapons change that dynamic completely. All of a sudden, you send off your troops. It's not, okay, I got to manage the publicity here as I'm getting our citizens killed off in these battles. It's me and my entire capital city are wiped off the face of the earth now. Maybe I won't send my troops speculatively in there to see what happens. If Ukraine had nukes, Putin wouldn't be invading them because Putin is comfortable with the time frame of war when it's conventional war. But he's not going to ever be comfortable with the time frame of war when it's nuclear war. It's what's called a kleptocracy, Winston-Salem. It's basically a particularly like ugly form of fascism. The point is, it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's crony kleptocracy. It's politicized kleptocracy. The parties who are interested in political power are at least as interested or foremost interested in using that political power to accumulate wealth. That's what makes it a kleptocracy rather than, say, communism or something else, right? It's the motivation of the parties to gain power. If you've got ISIS, that's not a kleptocracy. Let's say they established their country. Pretend they did, right? That's not a kleptocracy. That's not communism. That's totalitarian, what do you call it? Theocracy. So, we do have words that mean things for a reason, and we should try to use them when we can to mean things that mean things. Because if you don't like meaning things, then maybe you're just being things. Anyway, okay. I'm gonna wrap this up here in a second. I expect. What is it that gives the right to impose democracy as they see it in cultures completely different to their own? Who's imposing democracy on anybody? I mean, America's attempted to in the past, and it's blown up in our face because, as I said at the time, maybe we should listen to good old Alexis de Tocqueville and his discussion of how it's necessary for our peoples to have and sustain the habits of democracy over time. You can't. There. Now you're all consistent exercise dieting people. Well, why? Because we just tried to force you to be. Okay. Yeah, I'm still exercising and dieting because I still have my guns on you. Okay, now you're good, right? You're an exercise dieter, right? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, we're going to go away now. Oh, for fuck's sake. I was so tired of exercising and dieting. Whew. I am glad they are gone. You're not going to turn those people into exercise dieters, right? No matter how much you stand there and force them to do it every day so they can build up their healthy habits, as soon as you go away, they're going to revert to whatever they were doing before you forced them to change. Especially if you're dealing with the most ideologically stunted, one of the most ideologically stunted populations on the planet. You've got several ideologically stunted populations. The North Koreans are probably the most ideologically stunted, which means to say intellectually stunted by ideology, okay? Chinese are the second most, probably. Intellectually stunted by ideology. And then the Islamic world comprises the third demographic that's intellectually stunted by ideology. So, obviously, when specific ideologies successfully stunt large populations, it's a problem. But we still make a mistake when we try to personify those ideologies and try to do mythology instead of politics. We still make a mistake when we try to do mythology instead of politics. The mythological part of politics is already all done. It's just a lot of times people ignore it. It's just, it boils down to this. And this country is one that is built on the principle of individual autonomy. The individual person and family finding the way as they see fit through life. That the government is there to perform a very limited role, and it's defined clearly enough in the Constitution. Obviously, reality, quote unquote, contemporary America differs from the vision of America outlined in the Constitution. And obviously, the Constitution's relevance as a defining document for a government is going to get a little weaker over a couple of hundred of years, especially with all the technological change. There are some relevant considerations there. Unfortunately, while all those things may be true, what have all those kind of discussions done? They've only served to justify people doing things wrong. So it's not like the Supreme Court correctly adjudicated the issue of cars. It was not the case that cars are different than carriages, for example, enough to justify exempting them from the Fourth Amendment. It is true that technology can sometimes render some portions of our original Constitution either moot, as per quartering soldiers, or needing more robust explanation as per the Second Amendment. Technology has, at the very least, made it such that the Second Amendment now needs a better explanation than it provides. because it doesn't really provide any explanation except for that one clause about well-armed militia being necessary for the defense of a free state, which is the only frame of reference it provides. And in its definition of a well-armed militia, what it just meant was it didn't view that as a right. It viewed it as a duty. Like every man who lives in America, if we get attacked, you have a duty to take your mini guns that you obviously own and come and fight with us. That's what it was understood to mean, you know. There was no question about like whether or not they could own guns only if they're in the militia or something. The point was your right to own guns will never be infringed upon, and you kind of have an obligation to own them too. So get on that shit. Get a lot of them. There might be Indians or Frenchmen out there we got to shoot. That was the point of it. So the thing is, that doesn't work anymore when you've got fully automatic machine guns able to mow down a plaza full of people in a minute and a half. It's not serving the country's defense interests for all the citizens to arm themselves to the teeth with weapons of huge destructive capacity. It doesn't scale well. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? If we get stuck on ideology, then we fail to acknowledge these things. That the Second Amendment is, like all the Bill of Rights, an unnecessary reinforcement of something that should be accepted as automatically true. That which is not expressly forbidden is permitted. And to expressly forbid, one must have both good justification and jurisdiction. So these are things that should be starting spots. But that's another mythological or ideological kind of angle, right? And we don't want to excise from the conversation entirely matters of principle, which are ideological or mythological matters. But at the same time, if we're currently talking about those, then it better be because we're either in disagreement about those three fundamentals that we need to be in agreement about, or because it's just sort of an interesting conversation or something. But to mistake it for a political talk would be a horrible thing to do. It's not that. That's not a political talk. That's a pre-political talk. The fact is, we've managed to successfully split the difference on the Second Amendment. Individuals have the right to own handguns, and individuals don't have the right to own nuclear weapons, and individuals don't have the right to own a lot of military hardware that's expressly not permitted to them. One might make successfully the argument that there's no good reason why those people over there can handle having that kind of firepower while I can't. What makes that guy more able to be responsible with firepower than me? Well, the answer is the institutions of government and democracy. The bureaucratic shit, the structure, all that kind of stuff makes it, it makes it appropriate because the government actually does have a monopoly on use of force. So even while they say you have the right to bear arms, no, they're not saying the right to the possession of a firearm being necessary to allow each individual to attain justice for themselves. They're not saying that. At no point is the Constitution giving up the government's monopoly on use of force. And it's simply saying that the individual citizens need to be armed so they can help with national defense if other countries come invade us or whatever, or so that you can defend yourselves against various threats like bears and Indians and stuff. Well, the point is, that's not saying that the government doesn't retain its monopoly on use of force within the country. In other words, at no point did the right to bear arms afford anybody the right to go get vigilante justice. Let's see what's going on here. Lately, I'm starting to see how within any function, every other function exists again. Things seem very fractal sometimes. Okay, remember, functions don't exist like that. Okay? Let's try to excise that from your mind first. We should all excise that. I am an individual who pays attention to word-based mappings, conversations, explanations, etc. So much so that I underpay attention to my own physical comfort, eating enough, sleeping enough, so much so that I spend all my time choosing to stay inside in front of this screen talking at it. Or thinking about what I'm going to talk at it later. Okay? So, what's the definition of the function? Well, I'm an extroverted intuitor means if it's in the first slot, quote unquote, if it's my dominant nature, it means I'm a person who's always paying attention to the words he is saying or words he's going to say. And because I am a logical extroverted intuitor, I'm making sure they're going to not be easily negated by other kinds of words and arguments. So I'm also, it's true, sometimes not using that logical part. Sometimes I'm just playing with ideas and words and stuff. Regardless, what we can all acknowledge, no problem, is that it is indisputable that Eric has spent a disproportionate amount of his time speaking words out loud for the last 8 years. And I will tell you some subjective data. You can't access the data yourself, but if you believe me, you can incorporate the data. When I'm not saying these things, I'm a lot of times thinking about what I'm going to say later. Now, I'm a human being, so I am not just my most native expression of self. In other words, even though I'm an extroverted intuitor, that doesn't mean that I never eat or drink. It doesn't mean that I never sleep. It just means that if I'm going to make a mistake in an area, it's not going to be that I didn't say enough words. And it's not going to be that I was too busy taking care of my physical body. It's not going to be that I was too quick to take impactful action in doing something that was undoable. In other words, it was non-conditional. It's going to be that those aren't the mistakes I'm going to make. Or those are the mistakes I'm going to make accordingly, right? So, begin your understanding of cognitive functions by remembering this. You are awake for a certain number of hours of the day. Some of how you pay attention leaves artifacts. Some types leave a lot more artifacts of their attention than others. My attentional stack leaves a lot of artifacts. More artifacts than any other attentional stack. That's why I've got 6,000 plus videos of me talking about things. Because I'm an extroverted, talk out loud, put outside of me, intuitor, words and ideas, rather than digging holes, impacts, humping girls, impacts, or whatever, rather than those things, rather than is a habitual prioritization of one over the other and an implicit exclusivity because there's a finite number of hours in the day. I have now been live streaming for 3 hours and 10 minutes, and I have been talking the entire time. Even when I'm not talking my own ideas, I'm reading what you're saying out loud and thinking, okay, I need to respond to this. Try to explain this to these people because it makes perfectly good sense. And right, so do you understand feeling through thinking or only through the feeling function? What do you mean by understand? Because I experience my feelings. I might attribute meaning to them. So when Ranking of Kings made me cry, I experienced the physical sensation of having to blow my nose and tears coming down my face. I experienced the emotional sensation of sadness, slump, and it's hard for me to describe emotions, right? I experienced those things. If I were attentionally focused on those normally, I could even use those kind of experiences to inform my decision making, my ability to deliberate about things. I could attend by saying, this is most important. So that's what I'm gonna continue to attend to. I could potentially do that, but that's not me. Right? That's somebody else. So the point is, I experience feelings, and then I can choose to make meaning about them or not. I can say words about them or not. And so when you ask me, do you understand feeling through thinking? I experience my feelings and I think about them. I talk about them. My words are clear and mean things. Others frequently don't understand my words anyway, for some reason. Even though what I'm saying, everything I'm saying is non-metaphorical, right? It's as simple as I can make it, as clean as I can make it, as free from grasping. Because the thing is, when we use a lot of metaphor, we are grasping for meanings outside of what we say. But when we're communicating with other people, to the extent that we can communicate by meaning what we say, we allow the other party to participate too. And that's the point. Is with certain kinds of discourse, what's really important is that both people participate. But what's the criterion for participation? With certain kinds of discourse, it can simply be each person takes turns. I really like that movie. I really liked it too. But you know what I didn't like? I didn't like that. Well, I kind of thought it was okay. But I really like this other one. Ooh, I like that one too. Now, the purpose of that conversation is to take turns expressing your preferences about things. Okay? So, in that frame of reference, would it be appropriate for me to say, well, you're wrong? No, because they didn't say it was a good movie or a bad movie. They didn't say anything about which one can be right or wrong. They said, I liked it, which is saying to me, I am expressing arbitrarily some subjective data to you. Because it's subjective data, and I'm using the word like, and we all agree that what I like, I know more than you, what I like, that kind of subjective data, that we're not talking about justifications for things. We're just chatting about something. We're being arbitrary, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being arbitrary. The problem is, for people who habitually are arbitrary in their communication, when they're trying to communicate about something that isn't appropriately incorporating that arbitrary quality, they still try to be arbitrary. And they don't get that. The problem here is that I'm not playing the reciprocal let's take turns game. Is that game doesn't, this is not, we don't get to play that game now because class has started or the court has started or whatever, you know? It's like, no, there's nothing inherently wrong with rock, paper, scissors, but that's not how we decide the answers on the math test. And so, when somebody gets mad at me and starts screaming, look, there's no reason why rock, paper, scissors isn't a good way to decide things. It's just as good as any other. Yes, you're right. For certain kinds of shit. And for other kinds of shit, it's terrible. And that's just how it is. So it's true, we can't say rock, paper, scissors is a terrible way to decide things. And it's also true, we can't say rock, paper, scissors is the best way to decide things. Absolutely not. Same with this. NETI is not the best way to deal with everything. It's just the best way to deal with this. And the reason I say just is because that's the only relevant takeaway here. Is when you're confused about cognitive functions, it means you've either not listened to me, not heard me, not understood me, or willfully opposing what I'm saying because you're attached to some counter narrative. Those are the only possible things. Because what I'm explaining here is the single correct explanation for everything. Like, not just cognitive functions, but like all your big cosmological questions. It explains it all, but it doesn't give you the kind of turning certain statements or words into golden calves that people seem to want, you know? I need this to be the golden calf statement, though. It doesn't work like that. You got to include the frame, or else you're going to continue flailing around in this mythological wilderness. So I would suggest don't bother. If you're not equipped to be thinking correctly about it, don't bother. Just listen and try to understand what I'm saying. Or don't. But then don't talk about it either, you know? It's like, for example, what's the problem with Melissa Talks? The problem with Melissa Talks is not that she's full of shit, it's that she's full of shit about the wrong thing. If she said she was a Libra talking about astrology, but she actually had gotten it wrong and she was a Virgo or something, well, who fucking cares? Nobody, how can anybody ever catch her? They can't. It's impossible to catch her. She'd have to confess that she got her own birthday wrong or something. It's the only way to catch her. And so the problem there was she thought she was operating in that frame, but this isn't that frame. And this frame has a different set of rules. No, my dad never saw any combat. He was on a ship that was off the coast of Korea during the Korean War when there was combat going on, but he never saw any combat. But I think because that occurred, he might qualify technically as a combat veteran, but he never actually saw any combat. I don't know if that... I mean, or put it this way. He's considered a war veteran, but maybe not a combat veteran. I'm not sure. He never saw it. No bullets flew past him or anything like that. No. Yeah, he was on a ship during Korea, off the coast of Korea, near a war zone. So, call that what you want to call it. I don't know. Wait a second, Carla. You mean you opposed nuclear war? Hold on. Hold the horses. What kind of crazy proposition is that? Opposing nuclear war? Boy, you are a rebel. Like, was there some advocacy group that was in favor of nuclear war you were going up against? You don't have to be shot at to be. Oh, he's definitely a veteran of the military, and I think he qualifies as a war veteran. But I don't. I think combat veteran, you have to actually see actual combat. I don't know. Winston's mom would probably know that. Anyway, Korea actually wasn't a war; it was a police action, so maybe not. I don't know. I never really asked him that much about the details of that. Yeah, I am the most consistent with my definitions, but more importantly, I'm revealing I'm revealing explanations about cognitive functions that allow us to get a little beyond definitions and descriptions, right? One of the big problems is that we get bogged down in the static definitions and descriptions and forget that we're always talking about a person paying attention. Is Ukraine a war? I mean, I don't know. Did Congress declare war on Russia? Did I miss that somehow in the news? Just because the newspapers call it a war doesn't mean it's a war. The ridiculous thing, my dad doesn't have any medals. I don't think. Not that I know of. Haven't you seen all the people protesting against the lack of nuclear weaponry used in military operations? Stop wasting regular bullets! Stop wasting regular bullets! Stop wasting regular bullets! We citizens are angry today that our government is wasting trillions of our dollars on regular bullets when we can do the same job with just one nuclear weapon. I mean, that's the thing. If Bush Jr. wanted to have a fucking wild, irresponsible, ill-advised weekend trip to TJ on spring break, he should have done it in North Korea. After all, we never undeclared war on them. It would have been perfectly legal. We wouldn't have had to talk to the UN at all. Yeah, I know. Look, I understand it's a steep curve because it's been a steep curve for me. Well, the metaphysical plane is where we are right now. When we're talking about ideas, what we said is, let's pretend time stops passing. That we're not getting hungrier, that we're not getting thirstier, that there's no barbarians crashing down the gates, there's no lion about to eat us, that everything's on hold. And we can discuss ideas back and forth in this turn-based, word-based, static meaning thing, right? Or the most concrete way to tell you what the external metaphysical plane is to say it's the internet. It's the internet. So I am putting a lot of information out on the internet. That means I'm an extroverted intuitor who's putting a lot of information out. You might point out that people who are not extroverted intuitors in their dominant function often put out a lot of information. That's true. Probably not compared to me, but that's true. But just because they're not expert at intuition in the dominant slot doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to attend that way some of the time. And to do so willfully in some circumstances or automatically in others. So an SE Dom will have a similar relationship to their extroverted intuition that I have to my extroverted sensing. It's going to look like a mirror of me. Whereas I do a little bit of little thing to do a lot of talking, SE type is going to do more thing for less talking. You don't want it to go into a box that's above those boxes. Well, I mean, sure, being a human being is not entirely encompassable by any model. The internet is not the same as face-to-face conversation because it excises the physical aspects of it. So we're able to have this conversation comfortably, in part because you're not enduring the continual stream of flatulence that's coming out of my butt. Wet, moist, and full of bold fragrance. If you were here in the room with me and smelling this, you would all be gagging or running for cover, you know. So, the point is, it's true that human beings are more than any model of them. In the same way that two people talking to each other is more than can be modeled, virtualized on the internet. But the fact that we can take away all the physical shit itself is proof of what I'm saying. That in fact people attend in ways, or are now quite accustomed to attending in ways that require no physicality at all. There's this guy I made a couple videos with, and he informed me towards the end of the video that he was paraplegic. I didn't even know, I had no way of knowing until he informed me. That's how much the physicality has been removed from the equation by the internet. So now communication's enabled to occur purely on the metaphysical plane. I'm not going to now granted, I'm still going to be subject to physical biases. So for example, Melissa Talks displayed that. She saw me, my appearance, and then projected some physical biases out in her ideation. You'll note that I never do that. Well, why? Well, because I'm an extroverted intuitor, so I'm not paying attention to those physicalities. I mean, it's 16 configurations of priority is what it is. 16 configurations of attentional priority. Each one is specialized to be imbalanced so that you have an advantage, basically. But your advantage is limited to your attentional jurisdictional area. And if you try to use it in the wrong areas, it can cease to be an advantage. It can become a weapon, or it can become a disadvantage, or it can become a lot of things. The issue then is, are we as a species humble enough to define ourselves by where we are fundamentally failures? And when people have problems with the correct approach to typology that I'm articulating, what they have problems with is acknowledging that they are fundamentally defined by being massive failures in ways X and Y. That seems a good stopping spot. Everybody is. Everybody. So, if you want to honestly talk to me about typology and you're disagreeing with something I'm saying, let's begin the topic by each of us articulating what we're massive failures at. Shockingly so, to some extent. Ways that surprise us and others. How can I possibly be so shitty at this? Describe ourselves foremost thusly, and explain how it seems to persist despite any efforts and attention I direct to it. I am just unavoidably an abject failure at this. Start by explaining that. Then at least we're on the right track, because we're understanding that the reason you're saying you're an abject failure at it is because you're not paying enough minutes of attention in the right way, in the right context, to that kind of thing. Remembering again, there's a finite number of minutes in the day to pay attention with. So I'm not, right now, well, it's 3:20 in the morning, so. Is a car on the street? No, but that's just it, self-help. In order to be the best at ideating logically, I have to be an abject failure at ideating emotionally. Which is why when I married my first wife, my reasoning was, well, I can tolerate her. She's got childbearing hips, and it seems like the right age to start a family. That's called being an abject failure at knowing what's important in making decisions about relationships. I actively disliked the woman I was marrying and knew it when I was marrying her. Well, the thing is, what you're seeing, Self-Help Lounge, is that my understanding of cognitive functions, reality itself, language, philosophy, people, etc., is developing because there are things besides attention, right, called disciplines. People improve at disciplines. It wouldn't surprise you if after practicing shooting free throws day after day, many, many times, if I got better at shooting free throws. And you wouldn't mistakenly think, oh, he's improved his SE. That would not be correct. What would be correct is that I've taken advantage of the non-verbal part of SI that imprints muscle memory in things you repetitively do. In other words, I've exercised my capacity to learn. People learn and develop, especially in disciplines. Disciplines are things that are not closed systems. Grammar is not a discipline because I can teach the entirety of it to you and be done with it. Music is a discipline because I can never master it. I can only just get better at it. So the thing is, philosophy, ideation itself, when it's treated as an argumentational art form / science, is a discipline. The reason it's part art form is because it's not closed system like grammar. It's like music. It's open. But it's a discipline, and one gets increasingly good at it. The other thing is, YouTubing is a discipline, and I'm getting increasingly good at it. I am not, in any way, shape, or form, working on, improving, changing, altering my cognitive functions. I'm still talking, aren't I? I'm talking less adversarially than I have in the past. In the past, I tended to get mad more easily at people disagreeing and not understanding, and this has been a slow learning thing for me over the course of my entire life. There was a time when I was really young, in my teenage years, when people told me that they didn't understand what I was saying. I thought they were lying to me in order to gain an argumentational advantage by making me restate it in some other way so that they could exploit me misstating it so that they could negate it. And eventually I realized they're not lying to you, Eric. They don't understand you. It's too hard for them. I mean, I'm still learning that to this day. I'm still applying that reality and coming to terms with it. It's always maybe been the biggest challenge of my life. I swear I think probably half of the time of my life that I've been talking to people, they haven't understood a word I've said, and I've just been oblivious to it. Because as long as they didn't push back, I figured, okay, argumentation on the flow, done. Let's move on. But I bet you half the things I've said in life, the person did not understand what I was saying at all. I mean, look, the point is, whatever we're doing with cognitive functions, it's necessarily falls under the category of applied linguistics, which is to say, we are using a linguistic tool or a lexicon of terms to meaningfully model and taxonomy human personality. We're linking empirically via typing sessions in a way that gives it concrete verification to show that it's not merely a taxonomy, but also a model, that we're actually on to real mechanics here. So it's like, that's where we are at the moment. It's not perfect. It's still somewhat art. But it's so vastly better and more robust and more stout than anything else that would even begin to attempt to explain things, that it's kind of annoying that people quibble over the slight unfinished bits, uncertainties here and there or whatever, or difficulties in wrangling the binary nature of language with the dynamic nature of people, those kind of things. It bugs a little bit that people want to argue with me, because it's like, yeah, you can quibble a little bit about certain things being not perfect or not finished mostly, or having some questions that can't quite be answered, or I don't have a good way to test that, or something like that. But what is here already and being explained and repeated and demonstrated over and over again is so vastly superior to everything that humanity has ever had in the history of humanity that it's kind of shocking that the whole fucking world isn't here listening to me. I mean, I'm not actually shocked by it. I'm totally used to it. But if you think about it, it's kind of shocking. Because, I mean, I shit you not. What I'm saying here, everything I'm saying about this, is so much better than every attempt attempts to do something equivalent that humanity has ever done in the history of the world, that it replaces almost every previous attempt or subsumes it. And yet, despite the fact that it's not just correct, it's not just articulated well, but that it's operationalized and empirically linked, that it actually revolutionarily resolves fundamental ontological questions that have plagued humanity for all of its human history. And that, despite that, it goes largely unnoticed by anybody, except for you guys, is, if you step back and think about it for a second, absolutely fucking mind-blowing. But it's the same sort of thing as when, 10 years before Michael Brown got shot, I was throwing up Facebook rants every fucking day about police use of force. And nobody listened to me at all. All I got was no response or, "Oh, Eric, will you stop? It's not like that." Okay? Like a good 10 years of this. Then Michael Brown got shot, and all of a sudden, I don't care enough about black lives. Where the fuck were you tards when I was explaining this 10 years ago? Well, that's what it means to be Enneagram Tri-Type, the Curve Surfer. It's not all fun and games, it kind of sucks ass. You're right, but when you get proved right, nobody remembers, nobody cares. It's like, well, maybe you should listen to me this time. Why? Because you were wrong last time, I was right last time. Wait, don't you remember the whole COVID shit and how you guys all were... Here we go again. It's like, here we go again. The point is, I don't make a bunch of statements about anything. It's like, I could make a bunch of claims about every imaginable thing in the world. 99.999% of those I don't make. I choose the ones I make for reasons, for good reasons. It's like, it's my destiny, I guess. It's just my destiny. I'm an ENTP. In part, it's my destiny because of that. In part, it's my destiny because I'm an ENTP with all the circumstantial advantages to optimize. I'm a super lucky ENTP, so it's kind of inevitable. I'm a super lucky old ENTP who's already attained on enough conventional metrics. He doesn't understand. It's like a bunch of circumstantial shit that's all particularist. Plus, I'm an ENTP. Plus, I'm a 784. It's unavoidable. This is who I am. I am the guy who's right and doesn't get listened to. I'm the guy who's right, and even the people who listen to him mostly disagree. Because, after all, the person who's right is going to immerse himself in that environment. They're not going to surround themselves with yes men, that's for sure. So, it's frustrating because no matter how right I get, I don't have an audience of evangelists because I'm not evangelizing. We're engaging in a process of being right together. And I'm never going to proselytize, even though I believe in the revolutionary, world-changing power of what I'm saying. Of course, it doesn't play well. Oh, but it's a little more complicated than that. It doesn't exactly play well, but on the other hand, it plays differently than a lot of people think. Because I'm so cogent, so articulate, make so much sense about so many things, when I do make outrageously large claims like that, people aren't quite sure what to make of it. It's difficult to dismiss me as some wild-eyed nutjob kook who makes a bunch of wild, unsubstantiated, huge hyperbolic claims. Incredibly difficult to dismiss me as such. And yet, here's what appears to be one. What am I going to do with this? It's just creating cognitive dissonance in me. I know from FENI that people who say things like that about themselves are completely fucking nuts. And I know from NEFI, or FE, I mean NIFE, I know from NIFE, or from TI, that this guy is a serious surgeon. This is not somebody who's picked up words for the first time and how do I dribble these? This is a fucking expert surgeon. I can either tell from NIFE or I can tell from TI. So what gives? My NIFE, or just NI, is telling me he's got to be crazy. The scope of the claims he's making ensure that it is such. And yet my NI-TI also says this guy is definitely not crazy. He really knows what he's talking about, and he's an absolute surgeon with language. So what am I going to do with it? Well, the correct answer is you should believe my hyperbolic claim. It's true. But if you're really addicted to NI, you're going to want to say, well, there's a holistic truth here that combines both of those realities. It's bigger than this. That's just, of course it's not. It's described by the thing that I'm talking about, and so it absolutely subsumes your frame bias, but if you're too addicted to NI, you're not going to get that. But anyway, that's enough. 4 hours, about, almost. Maybe. Well, it's not quite 4 hours. So, I guess I should play a real quick song. You think it's fun being the one who's right about everything. It's not fun, it's incredibly dumb to be right about everything. You only really got two choices. You can't pretend not to know, or you can use indoor voices. But then everybody else is top real low. Because no, you can't be that right, Eric. That would make you too special. And we know that nobody is special. And if we don't know that, then we alternately know the opposite fact from that one. That everybody's so fucking goddamn special that you can't actually ever be special. So either way, Eric, you're not special, and that's the takeaway here. Since your claims seem to make a claim that you are somehow special, and since I've proved definitively that no one or everyone, and those are the only two options, are special, well then, ergo, we can deductively conclude you're not special, you just got the wrong attitude. And Eric, you must have an inflated ego that's just blowing out of this world. Therefore, instead of listening to you, we'll just stand here and twirl. since the screaming, everybody's screaming for it, fine. One more time.
I buy a crap load of whippets and I hate whipped cream. Wonder what that could mean. Always sit down when whipping up dreams, or you'll fall to the ground and you'll make a scene. I'm Wendy Whippets, B-double-B's wife. It's a hell of a life, lots of no's, little strife. Wendy Whippets has arrived. B-double-B and Wendy Whippets invite you to sing along with our song.
Like me. Much more you see, like the B-double-P-F-A-C-E. I'm a baby pig and my face is poo. My name is Mr. Poop Face. Nice to meet you. What we need is a party in here. Dancing girls, music, drugs, beer. Did I hear someone say I was a whack MC? Dancing girls.
W-E into that D-Y to the space. Whippets are what go in my face.
I am
Why
not a
wouldn't they?
whack
I'm
MC.
not Cindy Slipperjay. No way, I'm Wendy Whippets today. Mrs. Big Poop Face is also okay.
This is baby pig poop face, I might say.
Together we're a
There's no
couple
positive way to
super
mean that.
gay.
So just
B-double-P and Wendy Whippets invite you to sing along with our song.
B-double-P Face and his wife.
Mrs. Baby Wendy Whippets, Big Poop Face for life. Have a nice night.
No, wait a minute. These are what are known as my headphones. This thing is just for show. It's just for looks. It doesn't do anything. My daughter gave me these headphones for some present for some day. And I was so grateful to get them because their number one feature that makes them so special and good is not that they're good headphones, although they're not terrible, I guess, but that it has a long cord. That's the number one thing. It has a long cord. So I don't have to lean forward while listening to things. You know. Yeah, I know, Winston's mom, Carl Sagan always leaned forward when listening. But I'm not Carl Sagan. Stop comparing me to him. I'm sick of it. Billions and billions of years ago.
Billions and billions of years ago, Carl Sagan watched the Big Bang. He said, wow, that was no small bang.
The crowd goes wild. Oh my God, I can't believe he played Carl Sagan as an encore. That's one of his best ones. Alright, good night. I think I gotta move the car in. I hope I didn't get a parking ticket. And also, I'm about to run out of scheduled shorts. I need to make a few of those before I go to bed. And, I don't like it when there's a gap in the publishing schedule, you know. I'm trying to rock out the rest of this month's worth of experiments with the Shorts channel, and I can tell you we're pushing up against 150,000 views so far in the first little less than 3 weeks. In the first little less than 3 weeks. So pretty good. I'm pushing up against 200 subs in a little less than 3 weeks, and pushing up against 150,000 views in a little less than 3 weeks. More views and subs than I get in a month on this channel for sure. So, but of course they're not worth anything because they're shorts. Anyway, enough talking for me. Good night. I love you. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. I'm gonna kiss each of you on each cheek, but only in a non-sexual European fashion. Okay. Ciao, bella.